The Earth hides structures that defy the logic of modern man. Beneath the shifting sands and overgrown jungles lie megaliths so precisely cut that no blade can fit between them, yet their creators possessed no iron. Across every continent, aligned with stars that have long since moved, these stone giants whisper of a global civilization lost to a prehistoric cataclysm. We find batteries in ancient tombs, maps of Antarctica from before the ice, and celestial calendars etched into mountainsides. Who taught the ancients the mathematics of the cosmos? Why did they abandon their cities in a single night? We are a species with amnesia, walking over the ruins of a golden age we no longer understand. The evidence is carved in granite, waiting for a key that may never be found. Amid the cold winds of the Aragats Mountains and the low-hanging grey clouds drifting across the landscape, Ambed Fortress rises like a timeless citadel, standing firm at an altitude of more than 2,300 meters. Yet among all its fortified structures, it is the fortress walls that compel archaeologists, engineers, and historians to pause. They are not merely remnants of a medieval stronghold. They are a mystery of technique, knowledge, and perhaps even a technological tradition that once existed but was never fully recorded. The walls of Ambed were built from massive basalt and andesite blocks, but even more astonishing is the precision of the stone joints, a feature far beyond the construction standards of the 11th and 12th centuries. To understand Ambed, one must look through the layers of time, uncover what has been forgotten, and ask the question, who created these walls and with what technology? What do you think explains the unusually tight-fitting stone blocks at Ambed Fortress? Share your thoughts in the comments below. From afar, Ambed appears as a dark stone mass rising naturally from the mountainside, so seamless that one can hardly distinguish between natural rock and human-placed blocks. This illusion has even led some scholars to assume the fortress was carved directly from the mountain. But upon approaching, the masonry layers slowly reveal themselves, exposing a level of craftsmanship that is entirely unexpected. The large stone blocks of Ambed are not only enormous, but also astonishingly flat and even. Some blocks measure nearly 2 meters in length and weigh several tons, yet when stacked, they fit so tightly that a knife blade cannot slip through. The joints are straight, square, and polished like smooth glass, whereas construction techniques documented for medieval Armenia rely mostly on rough stones and lime mortar. At Ambed, mortar is nearly absent, or if present, it appears merely as a thin, cosmetic film, not a structural element. This raises a profound question: were the forces of compression and the weight of the stones calculated so precisely that the structure could stand for 1,000 years without shifting? In archaeology, structures are often evaluated based on the tools known to exist at the time. But Ambed disrupts this framework. According to historical records, medieval Armenians possessed only simple metal tools, hammers, chisels, and levers, yet the surfaces of many Ambed stones display cuts that are too flat, too uniform, and entirely lacking the irregular serrations expected from crude hand tools. Several experts have compared Ambed's workmanship to that of megalithic sites in Peru or Greece, places where extremely tight stone fitting continues to baffle modern researchers. One hypothesis suggests that Ambed's builders employed stone heating techniques to soften the surfaces before joining them, though no evidence supports this. Another proposes the use of multi-level lever systems combining human labor, animals, and gravity, but this still fails to explain the flawless alignment of multi-ton blocks. Remarkably, Ambed's tight-fitting stone technique does more than give the walls longevity. It also provides earthquake resistance, a crucial attribute in the seismically active Caucasus region. During quakes, the stones do not crack, nor do the joints rupture as mortar-based walls would. Instead, the blocks slide slightly against one another and return to place, functioning like a flexible joint system. Thanks to this mechanism, large sections of the walls remain almost intact after centuries of seismic events. In certain areas, geologists have identified small slip marks between the blocks, suggesting that this soft force transfer mechanism has indeed been active. Was this merely a coincidence, or did ancient builders understand material behavior deeply enough to exploit it intentionally? The sophistication of Ambed's construction is especially evident at the wall corners, where large blocks were cut into perfectly measured angles to form sharp intersections. Even a deviation of a few millimeters could distort the entire structure, yet Ambed exhibits near-perfect accuracy. Many researchers believe that the builders had access to advanced angle measuring tools or something equivalent to oversized metal squares devices, not commonly documented in the region at that time. Furthermore, transporting such massive stones to an altitude of over 2,000 meters remains a puzzle. The terrain is steep, winters are long, and winds are strong. Moving hundreds of multi-ton blocks would require a large workforce, pulley systems, special carts, or temporary transport roads, but no archaeological trace of such infrastructure has been found. Another striking detail is the presence of two distinct construction styles within the same wall. Some sections display expertly fitted stonework, while others use smaller stones and traditional medieval mortar. This duality raises the question: did the more refined sections originate from an earlier building phase, possibly belonging to a civilization predating the medieval expansions by Armenian lords? If so, Ambed might be a multi-era structure built upon knowledge that later generations inherited but could not fully replicate. The absence of detailed written records only deepens this mystery. Throughout its history, Ambed endured major fires, sieges, and even destruction by Seljuk forces. Yet many of the massive stone walls did not collapse. Some blocks still bear black scorch marks, but their structural integrity remains intact. What astonishes experts most is the wall's resistance to thermal shock. During a major fire, uneven thermal expansion normally causes stone walls to crack or explode. But at Ambed, the tight stone joints appear to redistribute expansion forces, allowing the walls to stay upright. This suggests that the builders understood the thermal properties of basalt and andesite far better than expected for the medieval era. Many sections of Ambed also show signs of unusual erosion. Some surfaces look as if they were melted or smoothed by extreme heat, forming shapes that seem unnatural. Some scholars attribute this to centuries of ice and wind erosion, while others suspect the marks may be remnants of an extreme thermal event, perhaps an undocumented battle or a fire of exceptional intensity. Yet none of these theories fully explain the distinctive patterns. Despite the many uncertainties, one thing is clear: the walls of Ambed demonstrate a level of construction far beyond their time, or at least beyond what historical documents describe. They were not built merely for defense. They embody an advanced understanding of materials, gravity, and geometry. A structure in such a perilous location, surviving nearly a millennium, cannot be the result of luck alone. It must have been crafted by builders who knew exactly what they were doing, even though history has forgotten their names. Today, walking among the ruins, visitors can see the colossal stone layers stacked silently, yet proudly. The walls of Amberd stand as a reminder that history is not recorded only in writing. Sometimes the stones themselves are the ones telling the hidden stories of the past. And in this case, that story poses an unanswered question. How did people hundreds of years ago construct walls so perfect they challenge even modern architectural standards? The Lavaux Celtic Prince tomb has long been regarded as one of the most astonishing archaeological discoveries of the 21st century, not only because of the extraordinary wealth found within it, but also because of the profound mysteries it reveals about early Celtic society. When archaeologists began excavating this massive tumulus in the Champagne region of France, they could not have predicted that beneath layers of earth and time lay a completely different world, one where power, ritual, international exchange, and above all, metallurgical sophistication far beyond modern assumptions of the Celts intertwined to form a narrative that almost rewrites the history of the Iron Age. If you had the chance to explore the Lavaux Celtic Prince tomb yourself, which mystery would you be most eager to uncover? Share your thoughts in the comments below. As the burial chamber gradually emerged, the image of a ceremonial chariot lying beside the remains of the man believed to be a local ruler immediately indicated that this was no ordinary grave. The tumulus, nearly 50 meters wide and preserved intact for more than 2.5 millennia, without any sign of looting, left researchers astonished. How could a treasure of such immense value remain untouched for so long? Was the site protected by specific religious practices, or was it located in an area beyond the reach of grave robbers for thousands of years? These questions created an aura of mystery even before the artifacts were brought to light. Upon entering the burial chamber, archaeologists realized they were facing a collection of artifacts unlike anything previously found in a Celtic tomb. Luxurious objects, from the massive bronze cauldron decorated with Dionysos and centaurs to elegant pitcher's cups and pouring vessels crafted in Greek and Etruscan styles, suggested something undeniable. The Prince of Lavaux had deep connections with the Mediterranean world. But how could a ruler from distant continental Europe possess treasures not only rare, but also crafted with the high sophistication of advanced civilizations? This question sparked numerous theories about a vast intercontinental trade network that may have existed during that era, a system far larger and more complex than typical conceptions of the Iron Age. Yet what truly perplexed scholars, forcing them to reconsider long-held beliefs, was the extraordinary metallurgical craftsmanship found in the grave goods. This aspect stands out as the most remarkable feature of the tomb, and the main reason Lavaux has been a central topic of archaeological conferences for years. The gold jewelry discovered exhibits purity, smoothness, and surface finishing so refined that it seems almost impossible they were crafted by the Celts, who are often depicted in historical accounts as warriors rather than master metalworkers. Techniques such as filigree drawing gold into extremely fine wires for intricate patterns and granulation fusing microscopic gold grains onto surfaces require advanced metallurgical skill, precise temperature control, and exceptional artistry. Where did the Celts learn such techniques, or were they in fact master metalworkers whom history has long underestimated? Notably, the gold plating on many objects reveals a level of uniformity rarely seen in Iron Age archaeology. The gold layers are so even that the joints are nearly invisible, and the coating adheres with remarkable strength, evidence of deep understanding of metal chemistry, something not consistently achieved even in several contemporary Mediterranean civilizations. While archaeologists often expect Celtic artifacts to appear rough or rustic, Laveau instead presents near-mechanical precision in its smallest details. This degree of craftsmanship raises crucial questions. Was there an advanced Celtic metallurgical tradition lost to written history? Or were these luxurious items produced in the Mediterranean and transported to Celtic lands as elite commissions? But it was not only the gold that surprised researchers. Bronze artifacts, including cauldrons, cups, pouring vessels, and fittings on the chariot display, extremely sophisticated casting techniques. Some decorations were created using multi-stage casting, combined with post-casting engraving, requiring impeccable coordination between artistic vision and technical mastery. The fluid curves on the large bronze cauldron, especially the molded depiction of Dionysus, bear a lifelike softness, reminiscent of Etruscan craftsmanship, prompting speculation. Did Mediterranean artisans directly produce these objects as a special commission for Celtic elites? If so, this implies the Celts were not mere recipients, but influential patrons with wealth and reach sufficient to order luxury items from afar. Additionally, the presence of specialized alloys, particularly precise combinations of copper, tin, and lead, led researchers to conduct extensive spectroscopic and molecular analyses. Results indicated that the metals came from multiple sources, possibly ranging from Central Europe to the Mediterranean. This supports the idea that the Celts participated in a wide-ranging trade network of raw materials, using them to produce ceremonial objects of immense symbolic value. Such precise alloy control also shows a deep understanding of the physical properties of each metal, something rarely documented in traditional histories of Celtic technology. As research continued, archaeologists increasingly viewed Laveau as a silent warning that our historical records are far from complete. The man buried here, though referred to as the Laveau Celtic prince, does not appear in any historical texts. No one knows which tribe he ruled, how extensive his domain was, or what role he played in the vast trade networks linking the Celts with the Mediterranean world. His remains indicate he was tall and held extremely high social status, yet everything beyond that has been erased by time. This silence itself adds to the allure of the site, raising far more questions than answers. The tomb also forces scholars to re-evaluate Celtic funerary customs. The burial of a ceremonial chariot, weapons, pottery, and luxurious treasures suggests a complex ritual system imbued with religious meaning and symbols of power, far more elaborate than previously thought. The blend of native Celtic elements with strong foreign influences shows that Celtic society was far from isolated. Instead, it was an active cultural crossroads. In this sense, Laveau stands as powerful evidence that the ancient world was far more interconnected and culturally dynamic than traditional models imply. Today, when visitors observe the exquisite artifacts displayed in museums, they see more than just shimmering metalwork. They witness the legacy of a civilization that extended its reach far beyond what conventional education suggests. Laveau acts as a time portal, guiding us into a world where the Celts were not only warriors, but also master metalworkers, diplomats, traders, and perhaps guardians of metallurgical knowledge that remains only partially understood. For all these reasons, the Laveau Celtic Prince tomb is not merely an archaeological discovery, it is a living historical enigma that challenges long-standing assumptions about the sophistication, influence, and craftsmanship of the ancient Celts. And above all, it highlights a seemingly simple truth. The deeper we explore the past, the more we realize that antiquity was far less primitive than we once believed. Laveau, with its metallurgy far ahead of its time, may represent only a fragment of a much larger reservoir of ancient knowledge still waiting to be uncovered. Situated on a high hill overlooking the Kiwu Plain, the Ratu Boko Hilltop Palace has long been one of the most perplexing structures of ancient Java, a place where even its name remains disputed because scholars still cannot determine its true function. Some call it a palace, others believe it was a defensive fortress, while many argue it served as a ceremonial center combining religious and political roles. What makes Ratu Boko mysterious is not only the fragmented architecture that survives, but also the fact that what remains on site does not match any known model of habitation or ritual space from the Mataram period. Upon entering the area, one sees gates, stairways, large courtyards, enclosure walls, bathing pools, barracks, and wooden foundations that once supported lost structures. Each element seems to tell its own story, yet when assembled together, they fail to create a coherent explanation. There are traces of royal residence, but not enough to confirm it was truly a palace. The ritual baths and linga yoni suggest a religious center, but the overall layout is too large and too strategic to serve merely religious functions. The site resembles a fortress, but lacks any evidence of military activity, no armories, no formal watchtowers, no signs of battle. Everything suggests that Ratu Boko existed between three worlds, religion, politics, and military, yet did not fully belong to any of them. If the ultra-precise stone grooves at Ratu Boko truly exceeded the technology of their time, how do you think they were created? Share your thoughts in the comments below. One aspect that draws particular attention from researchers is the unusual fusion of Hinduism and Buddhism within the same space. Few sites in Java display such clear duality as Ratu Boko. The presence of linga yoni reflects Hindu rituals, while foundational structures echo Buddhist architectural thinking, and several motifs bear traces of pre-Hindu indigenous beliefs. This suggests the site may have been a transitional center of power between dynasties or religions, a place where two belief systems coexisted rather than competed. Another hypothesis argues that Ratu Boko may not have been strongly religious like Borobudur or Prambanan, but instead acted as a stronghold of a royal faction, possibly one engaged in internal power struggles later erased from recorded history after defeat. Supporting this idea, inscriptions referencing figures of the Sailendra and Mataram dynasties, though the historical details do not fully align with established chronology. These ambiguous inscriptions strengthen the impression that Ratu Boko belongs to a chapter of history left incomplete or deliberately obscured. Another mystery lies in the site's location. Ratu Boko sits on a hillside, with a commanding view over the Prambanan region, where great Hindu temples later emerged. The elevated position is ideal for military oversight or surveillance of the plains, yet there is no evidence of actual defensive use. Choosing such a vantage point, but not using it as a fortress, has led many to believe the location was selected for ceremonial or astronomical reasons. The alignment of the main courtyard and gateways with the setting sun suggests intentional design, as from here one can watch the sun descend over the Prambanan Valley, a coincidence too exact and too beautiful to be accidental. This strengthens the theory that Ratu Boko may have been a ceremonial capital, a place where royal purification, initiation, or coronation rituals were performed. This idea is reinforced by its system of rock-cut ritual baths with subtly engineered channels carrying water through concealed passages beneath the stone floor. The space seems intended for noble purification rather than common use. The foundations and traces of organic structures in the area add another layer of mystery. Although no wooden structures survive, large foundations reveal that significant buildings once stood here. Yet curiously, no stone structures resembling a true palace remain, unlike stone palaces from other regional civilizations. This raises a critical question. Why would a supposed palace rely primarily on perishable materials like wood? Did the builders intentionally choose wood for ceremonial reasons? Did they not view Ratu Boko as a permanent residence? Or were the original structures dismantled deliberately? All possibilities remain speculative. We now reach the most mysterious aspect, and the central point requiring emphasis: the precision-cut stone grooves found throughout the site. This phenomenon is what sets Ratu Boko apart and keeps it at the center of archaeological debate. On large stones at the gates, platforms, and stairways, researchers have discovered cuts that are astonishingly straight, sharp-edged, and uniform, so perfect that it seems impossible they were made with 8th or 9th century iron tools. Some cuts are long, straight, and smooth, resembling results produced by mechanical saws rather than handheld tools. This level of craftsmanship appears to exceed the known technological capabilities of ancient Southeast Asia. Some archaeologists propose that these grooves were made using iron tools of exceptionally high quality, yet this contradicts local archaeological evidence, which shows no advanced metal workshops or tools capable of producing such precision. A few scholars go further, suggesting the technique may have been imported from another civilization or represents a lost indigenous technology. These extraordinarily precise grooves are precisely what make Ratu Boko one of the most debated archaeological sites in Indonesia. These grooves are not only technically impressive, but also consistent in design. They appear in load-bearing and structural connection points, suggesting the builders understood exactly how to create flat surfaces suitable for assembling stone components with remarkable accuracy. Yet since most of Ratu Boko's architecture was wooden, the use of such refined stone cutting on structural bases becomes even more puzzling. Why achieve such perfection for components that were not even the primary building material, with the builders planning larger stone structures that were never completed? Or perhaps they intended to create a sacred space in which every detail met ritual standards of precision with tolerances of mere millimeters. No definitive explanation exists. Some technical researchers have identified evidence that the rock cutting at Ratu Boko may have been part of a larger-scale construction process executed with near-industrial precision. Certain grooves have uniform depth and run continuously without wobble or deviation, something extremely difficult to achieve with primitive tools. Examination of the groove surfaces suggests wear patterns inconsistent with traditional chisels. These observations raise a fundamental question. What technology did the ancient Javanese actually use to create these grooves? If iron tools were used, their quality must have exceeded all known examples from the era. If fire, water, or proto-mechanical methods were involved, no accompanying evidence has been found. And if a special technology once existed but later disappeared, Ratu Boko may be one of the few surviving witnesses to it. These controversial stone grooves have led many to view Ratu Boko as a missing link in the technological evolution of ancient Southeast Asia. They demonstrate that ancient craftsmanship was not as simple as traditional records imply. The perfectly straight lines, smooth surfaces, and sharp right angles resemble results of modern mechanical tools far more than those of manual chisels. This becomes even more puzzling when compared with contemporaneous sites. Even monumental structures like Prambanan or Borobudur do not feature such unusual cutting marks. It is as if the builders of Ratu Boko employed a specialized, possibly secret technique that was never widely adopted. All these elements, the puzzling layout, the syncretic religious features, the vanished wooden architecture, the ritual baths, the strategic yet non-military location, and especially the precision-cut stone grooves that surpass their era, make Ratu Boko a perpetual mystery. The site is not merely the ruins of an ancient complex. It is a gateway into a period where the technical, political, and spiritual thought of the ancient Javanese remains poorly understood. Ratu Boko stands as a witness to a technological sophistication possibly greater than we assume, to a historical narrative, perhaps concealed, or to royal ceremonies that once unfolded silently atop this hill. The razor-sharp stone grooves that still survive today remind us that the past was not always primitive. It could be sophisticated, complex, and at times surpass the logic of the modern world. And it is precisely this feature that ensures the Ratu Boko Hilltop Palace remains one of the most challenging archaeological enigmas of Indonesia and of ancient Southeast Asian civilization. The Katski Pillar Monastery is considered one of the most mysterious and illogical religious structures ever built by human hands, not only because of its nearly impossible location, but also due to history's complete silence on the question who built it, how did they build it, and why did they choose a solitary column of stone hanging between earth and sky to create a sacred place. From afar, Katski Pillar appears like a stone spear thrust upward against the heavens, a pillar of an ancient world standing alone within the deep valleys of western Georgia. But what turns this place into legend is not merely its shape or picturesque setting. It is the sheer irrationality it imposes on modern understanding. How could ancient people construct a small monastery atop a nearly vertical column of rock almost 40 meters high, without lifting devices, without modern scaffolding, and with almost no access route? In your opinion, what is the most unbelievable aspect of the Katski Pillar Monastery? The engineering, the purpose, or the people who built it? Share your thoughts in the comments below. To grasp the mystery of Katski Pillar, we must start with what everyone notices, but few can explain. Its location defies every architectural principle. The pillar is narrow, its sides almost perfectly vertical, and its summit so small that even placing a basic structure seems impossible, let alone a church, a prayer room, and living quarters for monks. The task of hauling building materials to the top alone would have been impossible with ancient technology. Yet somehow the structure was built, stood firm, and survived for centuries before falling into obscurity. If these questions are already perplexing, the fact that no historical records describe the construction process makes Katski Pillar an even greater enigma. Local legends claim the pillar was once used by ascetic Byzantine hermits who retreated there to escape worldly temptations. Yet legend cannot explain the technical details. How could ascetics devoted to simplicity organize such a complex architectural feat? Archaeologists who approached the site in the late 20th century discovered clues suggesting the structure may be older than previously assumed. Stone walls, wooden fragments, architectural foundations, and religious artifacts indicated that this was once a sacred center belonging to a tradition that has disappeared from written history. The surviving remnants reveal a refined, spatial arrangement from the small chapel to the wine cellar and auxiliary structures, all built neatly and symmetrically despite being confined to a tiny platform hovering above the world. Researchers are astounded that even today climbing the pillar is extremely difficult, despite the presence of a modern iron ladder. In ancient times, without such tools, reaching the summit would have required ropes and exceptional climbing skill. But even after reaching the top, an even bigger question appears: how did they transport bricks, wood, stone, water, and all building materials up here? How did they create a stable surface for laying the monastery's foundations? And how did they ensure the structure wouldn't collapse during construction, surrounded by empty space and constantly struck by powerful winds? All these questions lead to the core mystery of Catski Pillar, the strange technical abilities of the ancient builders. Indeed, this element alone makes Catski Pillar one of the most challenging puzzles in archaeological research. Given the geography and limited ancient technology, building a stone structure atop a vertical limestone column required deep knowledge of gravity, balance, transportation, and construction concepts modern science claims were only systematically applied much later. Yet the builders not only succeeded, but did so with uncanny precision. Stones were fitted tightly, without misalignment or dangerous stacking. Wooden joints were perfectly matched to the stone structure, suggesting an extraordinary mastery of measurement. Some experts propose that the ancients built a massive wooden scaffold surrounding the column during construction. However, this theory is quickly criticized. Building a 40-meter scaffold wrapped around an uneven rock face would require an enormous amount of timber and anchoring techniques not found in any ancient Georgian structures. Furthermore, no large wooden remnants were discovered at the base or within nearby crevices, weakening this hypothesis. A second theory suggests that materials were hauled up using hand-operated pulleys, yet this too is doubtful, as keeping loads stable in strong winds would be nearly impossible. Some scholars suggest a temporary ramp spiraling around the pillar, but this would require an unrealistic amount of soil and construction material not present in the area. A strange detail emerges upon examining the stones. Most are small to medium-sized, seemingly crafted to be manually carried. This reveals that the builders understood materials needed to be light and manageable for transport up the pillar. It is as if they planned the entire project with precise engineering foresight beyond what is expected of their era. Some even speculate that the construction methods were passed down within a secretive ascetic group, treating Catski Pillar as part of a sacred ritual of overcoming physical limits. When archaeologists studied the foundations, they discovered something even more remarkable. The summit of the pillar had been leveled subtly, not by breaking large masses of stone, but by positioning structures to fit the natural contours of the rock. This shows the builders did not fight the terrain, but worked with it, turning irregularities into structural advantages. Such thinking is highly advanced, surpassing what is typical even in medieval architecture. The geology of the pillar reveals natural anchor points used strategically for stability. Weak areas were avoided entirely. This raises a profound question. Were the builders truly simple hermits? Or were they part of a specialized group with expertise in geology, architecture, and structural engineering knowledge never recorded in surviving documents? All available evidence, though, scarce leads to a startling conclusion. The builders of Catski Pillar possessed technical abilities we do not fully understand, capabilities disproportionate to their historical era, and absent from any known architectural tradition in the Caucasus region. For centuries, ascetic monks continued to inhabit Catski Pillar, yet they appear to have merely maintained the site rather than being the architects behind the original construction. The historical silence surrounding the early phase of the structure suggests that this was not merely a religious refuge, but a relic of an unrecognized technical tradition. Today, even with metal ladders and protective gear climbing, Catski Pillar remains intimidating. Standing atop the rock where winds howl, and the ground feels like the deck of a ship suspended in air, forces everyone to wonder, how did ancient people with bare hands and determination accomplish this? If the goal was spiritual testing, then the act of building the monastery itself was the greatest ritual. The survival of Katski Pillar into the modern age deepens its mystery. The structure shows little sign of degradation despite centuries of storms, harsh weather, and minor earthquakes. Its durability is puzzling, as no complex reinforcement methods were found. Only a rare combination of geological positioning, construction skill, and architectural intuition, now lost, could explain this resilience. Katski Pillar is not an ordinary monastery. It is a reminder that ancient humans may have possessed sophisticated techniques and knowledge now lost. It symbolizes the conquest of physical and spiritual limits while simultaneously challenging modern scientific assumptions. Perhaps the greatest mystery of Katski Pillar is not how it was built, but why were the ancients willing to do this at all? To prove devotion, to abandon the earthly world, to preserve a sacred architectural lineage. And if they achieved this without leaving any records, how many other extraordinary structures have vanished from history? Katski Pillar, though small, stands as proof that humans can accomplish the unexpected with abilities our era still struggles to understand. Until its secrets are unveiled, this solitary stone column will continue to float between two realms, half belonging to history and half to the inexplicable. Antar's temple stands within the wild Ingurtozu Valley of southern Sardinia, a land where time seems almost frozen and ancient traces endure against winds and sand for thousands of years. The foundations of this temple, or more precisely, the layered foundations spanning multiple eras, form the core of a chain of mysteries still unsolved. From the primordial Nuragic stonework to Punic modifications to the grand Roman reconstruction, everything revolves around one central truth. This sacred location existed as a spiritual focal point for more than 1 millennium, and its true reason has never been fully explained. What puzzles archaeologists even more is the strange combination of technical sophistication far beyond the Nuragic era, along with astronomical alignments, ritual traces, and most striking of all, the non-local sacred stones placed deep within the foundations. These stones have transformed the story of the Antas temple foundations into one of the most enigmatic archaeological puzzles in the Mediterranean region. During excavation, archaeologists were astonished to discover that the Roman foundation was not the earliest one, but merely the newest layer in a sequence that extended for more than 1,000 years. The lowest layer belonged to the Nuragic people, the mysterious native culture of Sardinia, built of large, uncut stones fitted together with surprising stability. Above it, the Romans erected their temple with column steps and a ceremonial chamber. Yet instead of choosing a new position, they deliberately built directly upon the older foundation, as if believing that this place held something irreplaceable. The question follows, why did multiple cultures across many centuries repeatedly build upon the same exact point? The answer may lie hidden within the stone materials themselves, stones that do not naturally occur in this valley. Although not formally considered an observatory, the Nuragic foundation shows unexpected precision. Many stones align with the sunrise during the summer solstice, and the Roman foundation's main axis almost perfectly matches that direction. Sunlight on certain special days penetrates deep into the central chamber, following a path clearly designed with intention. Some scholars propose that the Nuragic people selected this site not only for religious reasons, but for the symbolism of light, using it to mark seasons rituals or a union between the human world and the divine. But if they truly possessed such astronomical knowledge, then perhaps their transport of the non-local stones to this place also carried astronomical or spiritual meaning. The greatest mystery of the Anta's temple foundations lies in the sacred, non-local stones elements that push the entire site beyond conventional archaeology and into a realm of questions that have never been answered. Within the original Nuragic foundation layer, archaeologists discovered many stones whose mineral composition differs entirely from the rock found in the Anta's valley. They do not match the local geological strata, do not resemble the nearest quarries, and are even inconsistent with multiple surrounding regions of southern Sardinia. This raises three consecutive major questions regarding their origin, purpose, and method of transportation. The first question concerns where these stones came from, as analyses show that they originated from a region located at least several tens of kilometers away, characterized by harsh terrain, steep rocky slopes, and virtually no accessible routes in ancient times. Meanwhile, the Nuragic people were not known to possess large-scale heavy stone transport technology, nor did they leave traces of carts or any transport infrastructure. If that is the case, how did they move such enormous stones? By rolling them on logs, dragging them across mountain passes with ropes, or perhaps using a now-lost technique. The second question asks why they brought these stones to Antas at all, for their placement within the foundations is entirely deliberate. Some lie at the structural center, some form light alignment axes, and some were buried beneath layers of ritual ash. None of the stones were placed randomly. All appear to be sacred objects, transported from afar, possibly offerings, energy conduits, or spirit stones associated with an ancient ritual we no longer understand. The third question, and the one that deepens the mystery most, is which transport technology was used, and why not a single trace remains. There are no drag marks, no wear patterns, no grooves, and no tool traces on the landscape, even though the stones are far too heavy to have been moved manually without leaving any physical evidence. The complete absence of traces has led scholars to propose unconventional theories that the Nuragic may have used an ancient water route now vanished, that they possessed some form of natural stone lubrication technique, or that they used a method of lightening materials unknown to us today. Other theories suggest the stones were moved through large-scale ceremonial events lasting many days, driven more by spiritual significance than engineering. However, to this day, no explanation is sufficiently convincing, and the sacred non-local stones at Antas remain one of the most perplexing archaeological enigmas in the Mediterranean world. Unlike the Greeks or the Romans, the Nuragic people left behind no written system, and everything we know about them comes only from surviving pottery fragments, stone structures, and small figurines. Yet the traces discovered at Antas reveal a far more complex spiritual world. They practiced rituals connected to warriors and ancestors. Layers of repeated fire ash indicate ceremonies performed regularly, and faceless human figurines placed near the deepest foundation layers seem to carry a profoundly sacred significance. All these scattered pieces of evidence have led scholars to an important hypothesis. The non-local stones found within the foundations of Antas may have been ancestral objects or sacred items brought from another holy land, playing a role in rituals that we are no longer able to decipher today. When the Romans rebuilt the temple dedicated to Sardes Pater, they modified the structure at least 3 times, altering foundation geometry and wall alignment each time. Such frequent adjustments are extremely unusual in Roman architectural practice. One hypothesis proposes that the Romans attempted to realign their structure with the original Nuragic model, but did not know the exact ancient layout, forcing them to experiment with multiple configurations to recreate the original sacred axis. This suggests that the Romans too acknowledged the spiritual potency of the older foundation, especially the enigmatic stones buried beneath it. Rock niches, narrow corridors, burn marks and ash layers indicate ancestral rites once took place here. Some animal bones and burnt traces suggest offerings or purification rituals. Yet evidence remains incomplete, preventing scholars from reconstructing a full ceremonial system. One theory suggests the earliest temple might not have honored a single deity, but served as a contact point between the living and the ancestral spirits through sacred stones. From Nuragic times through the Punic era, the Roman period, and even late antiquity, this place was never abandoned. Despite wars, decay, or harsh climate, Antas was continually rebuilt. No other Sardinian site maintained continuous reverence for over 1.5 millennia. The ultimate question remains, what lies beneath the soil of Antas that ancient peoples could not walk away from? A natural energy line, a sacred artifact, or a threshold where the divine meets the human world? No one knows. But the non-local stones with their unidentified origins remain the key clue and the greatest mystery in unlocking what Antas has kept hidden for so long. The Bijapur cannons, the colossal artillery pieces scattered across the ramparts and ancient forts of Vijayapura, Bijapur, have long stood as one of the most enigmatic symbols of metallurgical and military engineering during the Deccan Sultanates. They astonish not only with their massive dimensions far beyond the standards of the 16th century, but also with their unusual metal composition, which has allowed them to endure almost unchanged over time. Approaching the cannons, such as Maliki Maidan, Landa Kasab, and others hidden across Bijapur's auxiliary fortifications, one cannot help but feel both overwhelmed and perplexed. Confronted with a central question, how could an ancient technological system create metal weapons weighing tens of tons that remain more durable than most modern metals exposed to centuries of harsh weather? From this very question emerges the mystery of the unresolved alloy, an element that makes the Bijapur cannons a uniquely extraordinary historical marvel. Do you think the secret behind the Bijapur alloy is simply a lost ancient metallurgical formula, or is there something else hidden within it that modern science still cannot explain? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Archaeological records reveal that Maliki Maidan, the most famous cannon of Bijapur, measures nearly 5 meters in length and weighs more than 55 tons. Yet it has shown virtually no significant rust, despite centuries of exposure to scorching sunlight, monsoon humidity, and relentless rain known to erode most metals. This perplexes not only visitors, but also modern metallurgists. Even industrial steel alloys today cannot remain smooth, crack-free, and uncorroded. After centuries outdoors, such extraordinary endurance raises a technical question. What alloy did they use, and what is the secret behind its longevity? According to common research, the alloy used in the Bijapur cannons contains a mixture of iron, copper, tin, and several auxiliary elements. However, the exact proportions crucial to determining the mechanical properties have never been recorded in any surviving documents. Some scholars believe the cannons were cast by artisans from the Ottoman Empire or Persia, who brought advanced metallurgical knowledge to the Deccan and applied techniques that even India at the time may not have independently developed. But even with this hypothesis, major questions remain unanswered. For example, how did they melt such immense quantities of metal using 16th century furnaces? The temperatures required to liquefy multi-ton metal mixtures would have demanded gigantic ovens and enormous fuel supplies. Yet archaeologists have found no evidence of casting workshops of such scale around Bijapur. The deeper historians investigate, the more the mystery expands. Another curious detail lies in the acoustic behavior of the Maliki Maidan cannon. When struck lightly, it produces a ringing tone reminiscent of pure bronze bells echoing unusually long. This phenomenon occurs only when the material is exceptionally homogeneous and refined, free of large impurities. Some modern metallurgists therefore suggest that the alloy exhibits a level of refinement surpassing most Asian techniques of that era, and that its internal structure may have been engineered through a specialized method, one that is no longer understood or has never been successfully recreated. Another hypothesis proposes that the Bijapur alloy was forged, quenched, and reheated in multiple cycles, creating unusual durability and elasticity. But these ideas remain speculative, as no destructive testing is allowed on the historical artifact to verify its atomic-level composition. The mystery deepens with the discovery that the cannon's surface is not only rust-resistant but also nearly immune to electrochemical corrosion, common in metals exposed outdoors for long periods. Indian researchers conducted surface scans and oxidation simulations and found that the alloy contains an unusually high amount of copper, creating a natural patina capable of blocking oxygen and halting degradation. Yet this patina appears too smooth and uniform compared to natural copper-based corrosion layers. Some bold hypotheses even propose the inclusion of trace amounts of lead or silver to stabilize the alloy, though no conclusive evidence supports this. The fact that this secret alloy appeared and then vanished is itself one of Bijapur's great mysteries. After the Adil Shahi dynasty, no cannons of similar craftsmanship were ever produced again. There were no foundries, no technical manuals, no successor artisans continuing the craft. The Bijapur cannons seem like remnants of a technological bloom that flared briefly and then retreated into obscurity, leaving historians to ask, was this truly a lost secret? Or was it knowledge so closely guarded that it disappeared entirely with the artisans who held it? Beyond the mysterious alloy, the sheer size of the Bijapur cannons illustrates engineering capabilities of astonishing sophistication. Transporting such immense metal masses, tens of tons onto elevated fort ramparts, was no trivial task. Ancient texts mention giant wooden carts pulled by teams of elephants and buffalo. Yet the exact method used to position these cannons strategically remains uncertain. Records state that artisans applied oil and used wooden rollers, but at such scale, wood would splinter instantly under the crushing weight. Thus, some theories propose the use of reinforced stone ramps or metal rollers. If true, this suggests the engineers possessed deep knowledge of structural mechanics, friction control, and load distribution. Many cannons feature ornate decorations, such as beast-shaped muzzles, elegant Arabic inscriptions, and regal insignia representing the Sultan's authority. These details indicate that the cannons served not only as weapons, but also as emblems of sovereignty and prestige. Yet strangely few historical accounts describe them being used in actual warfare. It appears their psychological and symbolic value outweighed their functional purpose. Some scholars propose that these cannons were cast primarily for intimidation rather than combat, or that their size made firing and reloading impractical. But if so, why pour such monumental effort into creating weapons too unwieldy to use? Once again, the answer remains elusive. At the heart of the enigma lies the unresolved alloy. It is what sets the Bijapur cannons apart from all other artillery of their era in Asia or Europe. Their durability surpasses not only time, but also the expectations of modern materials science. They do not crack warp or succumb to weathering. Touching the metal one still feels a cool, dense texture as if it had been cast recently. Some believe the secret involves a combination of factors: advanced metallurgical techniques, high-quality ore, multi-stage forging processes, and perhaps additives now unknown. Their existence challenges our assumptions about ancient technological limitations, prompting the question, have we underestimated the knowledge of early civilizations? Did they possess techniques that history has erased? Today, the Bijapur cannons still stand silent, immense, imposing as witnesses to the golden age of the Deccan. Yet behind their monumental presence lies the story of a metallurgical technology far beyond what historical records acknowledge. Despite scientific analysis, archaeological study, and historical inquiry, the secret of their unresolved alloy remains fiercely hidden. Until someone can fully decode their metallic composition, the Bijapur cannons will continue to rank among South Asia's greatest metallurgical mysteries, a symbol of ancient genius swallowed by time, but still echoing faintly in the metallic resonance that lingers upon their ageless surface. Karyat al-Fawd Temple ruins, one of the most important religious and cultural centers of the ancient kingdom of Kinda, still stands silent amid the harsh Arabian desert, like a challenge directed at archaeologists. In a place that once lay at the crossroads of ancient trade routes, a flourishing city had thrived for centuries, only to vanish without leaving any trace of war or catastrophe. Amid the vast expanse of sand and scorching winds, the temple ruins of Karyat al-Fawd become the most essential puzzle piece, revealing a civilization that possessed advanced construction skills, complex religious thought, and artistic expression far beyond what had long been assumed of pre-Islamic Arabia. Yet the most extraordinary aspect, the one that forces scholars to re-evaluate everything they thought they knew about the creative capabilities of desert civilizations, lies not merely in the precise stone architecture or mysterious underground water systems, but in the ancient wall paintings found within the temple and nearby residential structures. They are so vivid that the entire archaeological community was stunned upon their discovery. Looking at what remains of Karyat al-Fawd, a city standing in the middle of a deadly desert, yet possessing art and technology far beyond its time, what do you think truly happened to this civilization? Did they disappear because of climate change, some mysterious event, or a reason that history has yet to uncover? Share your thoughts in the comments below. When the first excavation teams approached the ruins, they expected to find pottery inscriptions or religious structures similar to those of South Arabian cultures. But they were unprepared. For the moment, they encountered imagery that appeared to step out of an entirely different world. Walls painted in red, black, white, and yellow, still remarkably intact, depicting horse riders racing across the desert, hunters drawing bows, solemn ritual ceremonies, and even detailed scenes of daily life meals, clothing, hairstyles. The level of detail surpassed every artistic standard known in pre-Islamic Arabia. These were not simple drawings, they were true frescoes, created with layered pigments, complex shading techniques, and depth qualities typically associated with major civilizations such as Rome, the Nabateans, or the artistic traditions of the Levant. The strangest part is that Karyat al-Fawd lies extremely far from these artistic centers, yet its style, materials, and techniques match, or in some sections, even exceed their refinement. These wall paintings became the central mystery because they raise a series of questions that are not easily answered. How could a city located on the edge of the Rub al-Khali, the desert, known as the empty quarter of death, maintain such a complex artistic tradition? Who painted them? From whom did they learn? Or are these paintings evidence of a cultural exchange network far larger than what history records? And most importantly, how have they survived for so long in an environment with extreme temperature fluctuations, virtually no humidity, and abrasive sand-filled winds capable of eroding any surface? The pigments still cling to the walls as if they were completed only a few centuries ago. Some scientists analyzed the pigment samples and discovered surprising components, ultrafine mineral powders, unidentified organic binders, and even traces of chemical reactions that only occur when pigments are heated at high temperatures. This means the inhabitants of Kiryat al-Fau were not merely painters, they possessed sophisticated material processing technology rarely associated with ancient Arabia. No one knows where they sourced the materials, how they mixed them, or why the formula was completely lost over time. Their mastery of tone selection also reveals remarkable sensitivity to light earthy reds for sunlit skin, subtle yellow for fire, and ritual glow, black for contour emphasis, and even gradient effects for textiles, something seldom seen even in Greek wall paintings. Alongside the mystery of the paintings stands the architecture of the temple itself, foundations built from sandstone blocks, fitted without mortar, yet forming nearly perfect straight lines. Massive walls were constructed using techniques no one thought ancient Arabians possessed. Some areas display cut stone surfaces so smooth they resemble metal saw work, although no such tools have been found at the site. The temple chambers follow perfectly symmetrical layouts, many showing signs of rituals related to the sun and moon symbols that also appear in the wall paintings, hinting at a deeper connection between religious practices and artistic expression. Beyond the paintings, Kiryat al-Fau includes a vast network of stone tombs surrounding the temple. Although built like the tombs of royalty, many were found completely empty. The absence of human remains has led archaeologists to propose the existence of corpse relocation rituals or symbolic burial practices now lost to history. Even stranger, some large tombs show signs of being opened from the inside, not by grave robbers, deepening the mystery. The city's water reservoirs, granaries, and underground channels reveal a technological understanding uncommon in the region. The city could not have survived nearly a millennium by chance. They clearly possessed advanced knowledge of water collection and storage in hyper-arid environments. Yet the greatest mystery of Kiryat al-Fau is not how it flourished, but how it vanished. A once vibrant city, home to sophisticated art, solid architecture, and active trade networks, was suddenly abandoned entirely, as if its inhabitants collectively left in peace. There are no signs of burning, no evidence of warfare, no traces of epidemic. The structures appear weathered by time, but not intentionally destroyed. Everything stopped abruptly and cleanly, reminiscent of civilizations that seem to disappear overnight. When all these elements are placed together, an inexplicable location, advanced architecture hybrid, religious practices, empty tombs, clever water engineering, and especially the vivid wall paintings preserved as if by an invisible hand, Kiryat al-Fau becomes one of the greatest enigmas in the history of the Arabian Peninsula. These paintings are more than art. They are testimony that this was once a brilliant civilization possessing knowledge and craftsmanship far beyond what historical records suggest. They are the strongest clue and simultaneously the greatest question. If the people of Kinda could create works like these, who were they truly? And what event concealed every trace of their existence beneath thousands of years of drifting desert sands? To this day, each surviving brushstroke on the temple walls of Kiryat al-Fau seems to whisper an unfinished story one humanity may take decades or perhaps forever to fully decipher. In the heart of Sardinia, Italy, carved deep into reddish sedimentary hillsides, the Domus de Janus rockhouses stretch across the landscape like a network of ancient memories that no one has fully deciphered. People call them the fairy houses. Yet behind this gentle name lies a far more enigmatic reality: over 2,400 meticulously carved rock structures dating back 5,000 to 6,000 years, forming one of the most unusual ritual funerary complexes of prehistoric Europe. Anyone who steps inside immediately senses something far beyond the idea of a typical stone tomb: tiny yet intricate chambers, perfectly flat walls, ceilings carved to mimic real architectural beams, and above all, mysterious red streaks clinging to the stone surfaces for millennia, challenging modern archaeological knowledge of ancient materials. The red pigment inside the Domus de Janus has remained almost unchanged for more than 5,000 years, and its formula is still undeciphered. Do you think ancient people possessed an advanced pigment-making technique beyond what we currently understand, or are we missing a crucial element in the process? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Domus de Janus were once assumed to be mere Neolithic cemeteries, but the more archaeologists study them, the less that explanation suffices. These sites resemble miniature worlds where the living recreated a home for the dead, where the shapes of the chambers contain a philosophy of rebirth, and where the red pigment, the color of life and death, became a central symbolic language. The fact that prehistoric Sardinians could carve spaces with false ceilings, faux columns, roof moldings, and decorative motifs into hard stone using stone tools is extraordinary. But their creation of a remarkably durable red pigment, surviving nearly intact for more than 5 millennia, elevates Domus de Janus into a category of mystery beyond conventional archaeology. From the outside, the entrances of Domus de Janus are extremely small, often just large enough for a person to crawl through, as if the ancient builders intended a symbolic separation between the world of the living and the sacred world within. Upon entering, one immediately feels as though standing inside a miniature replica of a real house, a central main chamber surrounded by smaller side rooms, sometimes connected in sequences. The surfaces are astonishingly smooth, a level of flatness that current archaeology believes should not have been achievable with the known tools of that era. Many ceilings are sculpted to imitate wooden beams, suggesting the ancient people did not merely create rooms, but sought to recreate the memory of a domestic space, as though ensuring the dead would continue living in another form of existence. But this craftsmanship is only the beginning. The most mysterious feature of the Domus de Janus is the red pigment found on walls, ceilings, and sometimes on ritual symbols. From broad painted areas to fine decorative patterns, this pigment is not simply ochre or iron oxide, used by many ancient cultures. Modern analysis shows that the color does not fade over time, is unaffected by moisture despite the porous sedimentary rock surrounding the tombs, and adheres to stone like a natural protective layer. The search for the formula behind this pigment has become one of the most debated topics in Sardinian archaeology. Some samples show ultrafine hematite particles so fine they resemble mechanically processed pigments, a technique nearly impossible to achieve with Neolithic stone tools. Other samples contain traces of organic binders, but these have degraded so much that identifying their source is extremely difficult. Some scholars theorize that the pigment was made by mixing hematite with animal fat or a special tree resin, then heating the mixture to stabilize adhesion. However, no archaeological evidence of kilns or pigment workshops has been found near the Domus de Janus. This raises crucial questions. Where was the pigment prepared and how? What deepens the mystery is that the red pigment was not mere decoration. It was deliberately placed in symbolically charged locations on the walls of main chambers, on bullhorn motifs, sacred icons of the Ossuary culture, and around carved false doors that represented portals to the afterlife. Here, red symbolized more than blood or vitality. It represented passage between worlds' rebirth and perhaps spiritual protection for souls on their journey beyond. How could a ritual pigment possess such extraordinary longevity? Could ancient Sardinians have had a deeper understanding of chemical reactions between minerals and stone surfaces than we currently assume? The enigma grows when pigments from domus across the island show consistent chemical traits, suggesting a standardized technique passed down over generations, a secret craft with no surviving written record or tools. Some researchers even wonder whether this consistency points to a unified island-wide religious system in which red pigment functioned as a sacred linguistic code. In several Domus de Janus, the red pigment forms geometric symbols whose meanings remain unknown. They may relate to fertility beliefs or to cycles of the sun and moon. Yet no interpretation has been widely accepted. Whether these symbols constitute religious imagery or a coded script, the red pigment remains the key to a linguistic system the ancient people etched into stone, awaiting those patient enough to decode it. Beyond pigment, the architectural layout raises profound questions. Why did ancient Sardinians create chambers modeled after real houses? Why do some sites have 7 or 8 rooms despite assumptions that their society was not highly stratified? Why were some domus clustered into large underground villages? And why were certain structures aligned along east-west axes, matching sunrise and sunset? These questions point toward one conclusion: Domus de Janus were ritual spaces created by a culture far more sophisticated than written history has acknowledged. Sardinian folklore claims these chambers were once the dwellings of tiny fairy women, divine beings, who taught humans metalworking and weaving. Though mythical such stories reflect the aura of strangeness, the domus evoke mystical uncanny and not entirely earthly. No one knows why red was chosen, how the pigment was prepared, or why it endures across millennia. Many archaeologists even argue that the red pigment remains harder to explain than the stone carving techniques because tool marks can still be observed, whereas chemical traces of pigment production have nearly vanished. Today, as the small rock-cut chambers still retain their ancient red coatings, they stand as reminders that prehistoric communities were far more complex than earlier models suggested. They possessed symbolic thinking, ritual systems, pigment technology, and profound insight into death and rebirth. Domus de Janus are therefore not only houses for the dead, but also museums of prehistoric knowledge. And it is precisely the undeciphered red pigment that keeps this site wrapped in mystery. It is not merely color on stone, but the remnant of lost knowledge, a chemical language modern humans are still striving to read. Until its formula is discovered, the Domus de Janus will continue to exist on the boundary between archaeology and myth, a doorway into the world of ancient ancestors that never fully opens. On the steep mountainsides of ancient Lycia, the close Acropolis cliff tombs rise like a forgotten world of stone, where craftsmen from 2,000 years ago left behind an imprint so majestic and mysterious that archaeologists today are compelled to pause and ask, how did they create tombs clinging to vertical cliffs, positions that even modern climbers with safety gear struggle to reach? Klos, one of the oldest cities of the Lycian civilization, was not only its political and cultural center, but also the place where they constructed some of the most unusual funerary structures in history, tombs carved directly into the mountain, standing against time, natural disasters, and the relentless forces of erosion. Yet what makes them extraordinary is not merely their perilous placement, but the way they recreate wooden architecture, mythological symbols, burial layouts, and fading traces that still retain astonishing sharpness, as if a hidden technique had allowed them to withstand millennia of storms and earthquakes. Within this grand picture, the greatest mystery lies in something seemingly simple. The carvings remain almost intact despite the obvious erosion across the entire cliff surface. What do you think allowed the carvings on the Tlos cliff tombs to remain so sharp for thousands of years, even though the surrounding cliff has been heavily eroded? Share your thoughts in the comments below. From afar, the stone tombs of Tlos resemble a massive beehive clinging to the mountainside. But up close, the extraordinary detail becomes clear. Facades mimicking wooden columns, firm structural joints, roof systems characteristic of Lycian style, and decorative patterns hidden in every millimeter of stone. Although carved from limestone, a soft rock prone to erosion, these tombs preserve edges sharper than those of any contemporaneous structures in Anatolia. This raises a profound question among archaeologists. Did the Lycians use special tools or methods to compress, strengthen, or treat the stone surface before carving? Or did they deliberately select areas of rock with unusually high density, something geological studies have yet to fully explain? The contrast between the softness of limestone and the crispness of the carvings remains one of Tlos's greatest paradoxes. Furthermore, simulating wooden architecture in stone is not unusual in Lycian culture, but at Tlos, the intricacy surpasses typical craftsmanship. Every beam rib and roof detail is recreated with such precision that many viewers mistake the facades for petrified fragments of ancient palaces. Several tombs also feature mythological symbols, animals, and religious motifs, yet no definitive key has ever been found to decode their true meaning. Although many inscriptions have faded, the primary lines remain intact, defying every natural weathering model researchers attempt to apply. Another intriguing aspect of Tlos is the intersection between archaeology and mythology. Greek legends claim that Bellerophon, the heroic rider of the winged horse Pegasus, once lived in Tlos, and that his tomb may also lie here. Though no archaeological evidence has confirmed this, the presence of a hero's tomb makes Tlos a crossroads of myth and history. Even more curious is that motifs depicting warriors, winged creatures, and protective symbols seem to cluster around this area, prompting scholars to speculate that the Lycians intentionally recorded the memory of a legendary figure who shaped their cultural identity. These motifs, though weathered, still retain their structural clarity, reinforcing the paradox of natural erosion and the tomb's extraordinary resilience. Within the necropolis, a tiered system becomes apparent. Higher tombs appear reserved for aristocrats or powerful families, while lower ones may belong to lesser social groups. However, no written source explains the principles guiding this hierarchy, so current theories remain speculative. The tombs vary widely in size and craftsmanship, suggesting a complex social stratification, but no documentation has been found detailing Lycian funerary rituals or the criteria for choosing burial locations. And this leads to the greatest mystery, one that archaeologists still cannot convincingly explain. While the entire cliff face at Tlos has endured severe erosion, cracks, landslides, and deformation over millennia, most tomb facades remain sharply defined as though carved only a few centuries ago. This contradicts all natural weathering models. The cliff clearly shows peeling rock layers, deep erosion channels, and smooth surfaces worn down by wind and rain. Yet right beside these damaged zones, the facades remain intact. Rows of crisp columns, sharply angled eaves and door frames so precise that sunlight striking them highlights the dramatic contrast between the eroded and preserved surfaces. This discrepancy cannot be explained as a mere geological anomaly. If the rock is uniform and exposed to the same conditions, such differences should not exist. Some theories suggest that the Lycians selected denser rock layers deeper within the mountainside before carving, allowing the tomb facades to resist natural fractures. However, geological surveys have not confirmed this. Others propose that the builders treated the stone with heat saline water or organic substances to harden it, yet no evidence exists. Another idea points to microbial layers forming natural protective coatings, but this fails to explain the persistent sharpness of the carvings. Thus, the sixth characteristic, the paradox of erosion and preservation, remains the most baffling aspect of the entire necropolis. The resilience of the carvings may also hold symbolic meaning. Some anthropologists suggest that the Lycians believed in leaving an eternal imprint for the deceased, possibly through rituals or techniques yet unknown. However, this remains speculation, as no records describe the construction processes or funerary rituals. Many tomb chambers are now severely damaged inside, but their facades rarely collapse, another contradiction that deepens the mystery. Alongside the erosion paradox, the logistics of transporting bodies to such dangerous heights remain unexplained. No traces of scaffolding, stairways, paths, or lifting systems have been found. Only steep cliffs and tombs perched at heights requiring modern climbing equipment. This positions Tlos as one of the strongest examples of ancient engineering that defies conventional expectations. No blueprints, no written instructions, only the stone remains. Today, standing beneath the towering cliffs of Tlos and looking up at the suspended tombs, one cannot escape the profound silence of millennia. The wind carries echoes of unanswered questions. Time has worn down the mountain-carved deep scars into the cliffs, triggered landslides, and reshaped the terrain, yet it seems to avoid the delicate lines left by ancient hands, creating a surreal contrast. This paradox ensures that the Tlos Acropolis cliff tombs remain forever an enigma, a challenge to archaeology, and a testament to the engineering beliefs and ingenuity of a civilization that turned mountain stone into enduring narrative. In a world shaped by natural chaos, these tombs stand firm, their engravings intact, as if reminding us that some secrets of the past are not yet ready to be revealed. The Trawalan Majapahit red brick city emerges across the plains of East Java as a great mystery still far from fully deciphered, a once glorious capital of the Majapahit Empire, now reduced to scattered red brick walls, underground channels, and solitary gates dispersed across the landscape. Yet these seemingly disconnected ruins tell an extraordinary story, the story of a unique ancient city in Southeast Asia, built almost entirely from red brick, a material that appears simple at first glance, but holds within it a technological code far ahead of its time. While other contemporary civilizations relied on stone or wood for major constructions, Majapahit chose fired brick as the foundation for a capital spanning tens of square kilometers. The dominance of red brick was not born from a lack of resources, but seems to have been a strategic and technical choice so advanced that it still puzzles archaeologists today. The bricks of Trawalan possess a durability unexplained by traditional firing techniques. They withstand tropical rains for centuries do not crack a road or hollow, and many still retain sharp edges as if newly made. Their deep red tone is not merely the result of local clay, but a sign of a highly refined process of mixing and temperature control. Modern Indonesian brickmakers who attempted to reproduce them consistently fail to achieve the same density and uniformity. This leads to an intriguing hypothesis: the Majapahit people may have possessed a firing or compression technology we have yet to rediscover. What do you think allowed the Majapahit people to create red bricks that were far more durable than medieval technology should have allowed? Share your thoughts in the comments below. It is not only the bricks themselves that astonish, but also the bricklaying technique at Trawalan. Many structures such as Bajang Ratu, Ringan Lawangan, and Candi Tikus display joints so tight that a knife blade cannot slip between them. More astonishingly, studies reveal no traces of mortar between the layers. The bricks were polished, cut, pressed, or shaped with such precision that their construction resembles megalithic stone fitting in other ancient civilizations. Majapahit builders understood exactly how to create optimal surface contact, apply balanced compression, and form interlocking systems that allowed structures to survive centuries of natural subsidence. For medieval technology, this surpasses conventional expectations. Did they possess advanced measuring tools, flattening systems, or an on-site firing method that fused bricks into monolithic blocks? All of this remains theoretical. The city is also remarkable for its level of urban planning rarely seen in the region during the 13th to 15th centuries. Trawalan is described as a grand capital with straight roads, modular zoning, numerous religious structures, palaces, and residential sectors arranged in a carefully calculated layout. Archaeologists discovered that many areas of the city were connected by an enormous hydraulic system: canals, reservoirs, underground channels, and square wells. Large ponds, such as Sagaran Lake, and structures like Candi Tikus reveal that Majapahit did not manage water solely for daily use, but integrated it into ceremonial functions, urban cooling, and flood control. This reflects a mastery of hydrology that is difficult to attribute to a medieval Southeast Asian civilization. And remarkably, every one of these hydraulic structures was constructed from red brick. Water-resistant, tightly fitted, non-porous, and crack-resistant, these bricks demonstrate that Majapahit's brick technology was developed as a comprehensive engineering system, not simply a building material. This reinforces the idea that the red brick city was no coincidence, but an intentional technological paradigm. Even more intriguing, several gates and structures in Trawalan appear to align with specific solar and astronomical cycles. When measuring their orientation, structures such as Ringan Lawang and Bajang Ratu seem to align with sunrise or sunset on significant Hindu Javanese ritual dates, including solstices and ceremonial festivals. Although not definitively proven, the pattern appears frequently enough to suggest that Majapahit integrated astronomical knowledge into its city design. This emphasizes the calculated nature of the capital far beyond a traditionally built medieval settlement. Another great mystery is that the true scale of Trawalan remains unknown. Despite decades of excavation, archaeologists believe most of the city still lies buried beneath farmland and modern settlements. Many discovered structures represent only fragments, making it impossible to visualize the entire capital layout. There may be undiscovered palaces, ritual complexes, or an even more complex hydraulic grid underground. If uncovered, these could drastically reshape our understanding of Majapahit's sophistication. This raises the question: was Trawalan, once one of the largest medieval metropolises in Southeast Asia, later lost from historical memory? Its disappearance has inspired countless theories: warfare, natural disasters, political shifts, or sudden environmental collapse. Chinese records, and particularly the Javanese epic Nagarakretagama, describe Trowolan as a radiant capital with grand palaces, markets, residential quarters, and temples. Yet what remains today does not match these accounts. It is as if much of the city vanished or was leveled by time. The only material consistently preserved is red brick, which seems to outlast wood-stone carvings and palace structures. This raises a crucial question. Why did Majapahit and its contemporaries leave behind so few stone monuments, relying instead on brick as their architectural signature? Explanations remain inconclusive. Some argue that large stone sources were scarce, but this is not entirely accurate. Basalt and andesite are present in nearby regions. Thus, the use of red brick was not a compromise, but a refined, long-standing technical tradition forming what could be called a unique Majapahit brick technology. Looking closely at individual bricks reveals meticulous standardization, nearly identical dimensions to the millimeter uniform, weight-low porosity, and high compression strength. Some bricks even bear fingerprints or enigmatic symbols suggesting controlled batch production. This has led to speculation that Majapahit operated large-scale brick workshops akin to an industrialized manufacturing sector. Yet no such workshop has been conclusively identified. The small kilns occasionally discovered cannot account for the vast number of bricks required to build such an enormous city. Where then were the real kilns? Were they destroyed, buried, or based on an unconventional process lost to time? The deeper one investigates, the more Trowolan resembles a multi-layered puzzle. Beyond architectural enigmas, the artifacts unearthed reveal advanced craftsmanship, finely soldered goldwork, smooth glazed ceramics, and precisely forged metal tools indicate that Majapahit possessed a highly developed technological ecosystem. Remarkably, nearly all these artifacts were found inside red brick structures, as if the brick itself served as a natural protective environment, shielding items from moisture and stabilizing temperature for centuries. What perplexes scholars the most is the centuries-long silence surrounding Trowolan. After the fall of the Majapahit Empire, the capital was abandoned with no surviving record describing the event. A political, economic, and cultural hub of such magnitude should have left noticeable historical accounts of its decline, yet nearly nothing remains. The red brick city was seemingly erased from the map, swallowed by time, until rediscovered in the 19th century. Since then, excavations continue, but each discovery brings more questions than answers. Ultimately, what makes Trowolan more extraordinary than any other ancient capital in Southeast Asia is the absolute dominance of red brick in its architecture. Brick was not merely a material, it was the soul of the city, the foundation of its engineering, and the longest-lasting witness to Majapahit's achievements. When we look upon the remaining brick walls, we see not only durability, but clues of a civilization that reached a technological level we still cannot fully replicate. The inexplicable resilience of Majapahit bricks, weatherproof, mortarless uniform, forms the key to why this city remains one of Southeast Asia's greatest archaeological mysteries. The Trowolan Majapahit red brick city is not merely a ruin, it is a temporal cipher where each brick holds an unanswered question, and the entire metropolis stands as a challenge to anyone seeking to understand the true capabilities of ancient civilizations. If a medieval city could flourish using only red brick, perhaps we have underestimated the technological potential of the past. Trowolan endures as living proof that history is not simply what is written. Sometimes what remains unspoken is far more compelling. The Balbal stone warrior statues have long been regarded as one of the most enigmatic traces of the Central Asian steppe, where human-shaped stone figures stand solemnly in the vast landscape as if silently observing the flow of history from thousands of years ago until today. Appearing from Mongolia to Kazakhstan, from Kyrgyzstan to Siberia, no one can state with certainty who erected this immense system of statues, and their true purpose remains a question that archaeologists continuously debate. These stone warrior figures are not decorative artworks. They are fragmented clues of an ancient symbolic and spiritual system that modern humanity has yet to decipher. They resemble mute witnesses standing for centuries, and the more they are examined, the more people realize they contain layers of meaning deeper than anyone first imagined. What do you think the true purpose of the Balbal warrior statues was? To honor fallen warriors, to mark territory, or to serve as guardians of the spirit world? Share your thoughts in the comments below. One of the first striking aspects of the Balbal is their extraordinary geographical spread. No other ancient stone statue system extends across such a vast region spanning thousands of kilometers. The strange thing is that various cultures on the steppe seem to share some connection to the practice of erecting Balbal, even though they did not always blend or exchange traditions clearly. Some archaeologists believe the ancient Turkic peoples created most of the Balbal, but dating evidence shows that these statues appeared during overlapping periods spanning centuries, even millennia. This raises the question, could Balbal represent a tradition beyond any single ethnic group, belonging instead to a deeper cultural layer, an ancient steppe belief system that predated the Turkic groups? Since no ancient texts describe the Balbal clearly, everything must be reconstructed through speculation and archaeological fragments. Looking at the shape of the Balbal, they evoke a sense of both familiarity and strangeness. Some statues resemble real humans, from the head, eyes, nose, and beard to their pose holding weapons or ceremonial cups. Yet many others have body proportions that do not follow anatomical norms, as if ancient sculptors intentionally distorted or exaggerated certain features to convey metaphysical meanings. Some figures have sharp, detailed facial features, as though carved by skilled artisans, while those beside them look crude, almost primitive. This diversity baffles researchers. Are Balbal portraits deities, symbols of warrior spirits? Numerous theories exist, but none provide a universally accepted answer. Another intriguing feature is that Balbal often appear in long, straight rows, sometimes aligned with sunrise or sunset, sometimes leading toward tombs or memorial structures, but at times completely unrelated to any known construction. In some places, hundreds of statues stand in succession, resembling either the trace of a spiritual journey or a symbolic map pointing toward the afterlife. The popular theory suggests each Balbal represented an enemy slain by the warrior who was buried nearby. But this theory quickly falters. Not all Balbal are associated with graves, and there is no strong evidence to confirm it. Some scholars argue they served an astronomical purpose, yet most rows show no consistent cosmic alignment. This uncertainty marks the beginning of the greatest debate surrounding Balbal. What was their true function? This is the core of academic debate that has persisted for more than a century. Countless theories have been proposed, each containing unresolvable gaps. Some believe Balbal were grave markers used to honor warriors by depicting the enemies they defeated, following the slave souls tradition found among certain nomadic groups. If true, Balbal would function as carved battle memories. Yet their widespread distribution and sheer numbers do not match the quantity of known burials. Many Balbal rows lack any sign of human remains, weakening this theory significantly. Another group suggests Balbal might have served as territorial markers similar to boundary stones. This seems plausible, given the open steppe landscape, where borders are often ambiguous. However, Balbal are too symbolic and too intricately carved to serve as mere frontier markers, and their orientations tend to reflect ritual or astronomical meaning rather than political boundaries. Consequently, this theory also loses traction. Some modern scholars explore a more mystical and ritual-based perspective. They believe Balbal functioned as guardians of the spirit realm, standing along ley lines, supposed energy paths across the steppe. Their linear arrangement and solar alignments echo megalithic structures like Stonehenge, the Nazca Lines, or European dolmens. Although no scientific study has proven any energetic or magnetic correlation, this hypothesis intriguingly explains something the others cannot: why so many Balbal possess non-human features, as though they represent spirits or otherworldly entities in ancient shamanic belief. In Eurasian shamanism, anthropomorphic figures often serve as guides, soul keepers, or mediators between the living and the dead. This opens a new perspective. Perhaps Balbal symbolized a spiritual journey rather than merely commemorating fallen warriors. Another contentious aspect is the multi-era nature of Balbal. In many areas, statues standing side by side can differ in age by hundreds of years. This leads scholars to consider whether ancient peoples repeatedly returned to certain sacred locations to erect Balbal across successive generations. This aligns with the pattern of ritual sanctuaries where different communities over long periods conducted ceremonies, raised new monuments, or reused older structures. If true, Balbal may have been tied to communal rituals, ancestral traditions, or spiritual guardianship. Yet without written records, everything remains speculative. The inconsistencies in shape, distribution, chronology, and purpose make Balbal a true archaeological enigma. They do not fit any typical model of ancient monuments. Not tied to a single culture, not fixed in function, not stylistically unified, Balbal seem like remnants of a lost ideological system, leaving only stone traces for us to interpret. The more researchers study them, the more elusive they become. It is entirely possible that Balbal served multiple purposes: tomb markers, boundary stones, spiritual icons, battle symbols, depending on community and historical period. Despite their diversity, what makes Balbal truly extraordinary is the sense of presence they evoke. Standing before a Balbal on the vast steppe, a modern observer feels as though facing not a lifeless statue, but an ancient entity gazing across time. Their silence is not merely the silence of stone. It is the silence of unwritten memories belonging to a culture that valued symbols over words. This silence fuels the mystery, ensuring that Balbal continue to fascinate researchers and explorers alike. To this day, the true function of Balbal remains unanswered. But this very lack of resolution makes them one of humanity's most mysterious cultural legacies, a collective sculptural tradition spanning millennia, embodying the spiritual world of ancient steppe peoples whose beliefs we still cannot fully understand. Balbal stand as a reminder that history is not always written with ink. Sometimes it is carved into stone, waiting for later generations to ask the right questions. Deep within the northeastern forests of Angkor, where sunlight must weave through ancient canopies before touching the ground, lies a massive ruin known as Beng Malaya, a temple seemingly rejected by time, yet never truly collapsing. It is not merely a monument swallowed by the jungle, It is a strange testament to Khmer engineering a place whose foundations have defied centuries of abandonment and destruction. What do you think allowed Beng Mialea, a temple abandoned for centuries in the deep jungle, to preserve its core structure almost perfectly intact? Share your thoughts in the comments below. For generations, no human voice echoed here. Stone walls cracked under monsoon rains, moss covered every relief, and ancient trees grew so massive they tore entire roofs apart. Beng Mialea should have vanished. But a paradox unfolded. Nature destroyed the surface, yet beneath it, the backbone of the temple remained intact, almost unmoving. This contradiction turned Beng Mialea into one of the most mysterious remnants of Khmer civilization. At first glance, Beng Mialea resembles a forgotten Angkor Wat, with collapsed corridors, shattered sandstone blocks, and walls crumbling into chaotic heaps. But deeper inside, something astonishing appears. Pillars, substructures, sunken corridors, and major wall lines still stand exactly where Khmer builders placed them nearly a millennium ago. What created this resilience? That question is why Beng Mialea remains an architectural enigma. Almost nothing is recorded about Beng Mialea's creation. There are no inscriptions, no wall texts, and no ancient documents explaining its purpose. Archaeologists only hypothesize that it dates to the reign of Suryavarman II, the same king who built Angkor Wat. If so, why was a temple nearly the size of Angkor Wat erected deep in remote forest, far from the political center? Some theories propose Beng Mialea was an architectural prototype used to test techniques before building Angkor Wat. Others believe it served as a secret ritual sanctuary isolated from royal life. None of these theories are proven. What remains today suggests Beng Mialea was once a grand mandala-style Hindu complex with surrounding corridors, libraries, gopuras, and a central sanctuary. Yet what fascinates researchers is not its original beauty, but how it collapsed. Many walls fell in consistent directions, as though the structure endured a massive shock. Some believe it was an earthquake, others blame warfare. Even stranger, the collapse did not damage the deeper structural core, where foundations remain nearly perfect. The temple fell, yet never to its roots, as if designed to absorb destruction but resist extinction. As nature engulfed Beng Mialea, many assumed that a temple abandoned for centuries in the deep jungle would inevitably collapse completely, for there was no one to maintain it, no preservation efforts, and no reinforcement or structural support of any kind. Yet what happened was the exact opposite. The temple's foundation remained firmly intact, despite the overwhelming pressure of giant tree roots as thick as stone pillars, despite decades of monsoon rains eroding its surface, despite harsh weather that fractured the sandstone, and even when heavy roof sections crashed down and pressed directly onto the structures below. This strange phenomenon shows that the jungle can destroy walls, but it cannot break the foundational modules engineered with the gravity-locking techniques of the ancient Khmer, where massive sandstone blocks were joined without mortar, relying solely on natural weight to seal themselves together. When the upper structures collapsed, that very weight further stabilized the base. This proves that the ancient builders did not merely understand stone, they understood the life of stone, a knowledge that modern architecture is still trying to study and unravel. Archaeologists entering Beng Mialea are stunned by its endurance against time. In many corridors, though, surrounding walls have collapsed, the main floor remains walkable, stable, unmoving. Stones lie with uncanny precision, as if bound by an unspoken thousand-year pact. Subterranean corridors, now buried by debris, still display no signs of foundational shift. This suggests the builders chose a geologically stable base, not just leveled soil. They seem to know where stone would sleep peacefully for centuries. Experts often compare Beng Milea to iconic stone sites such as Machu Picchu or ancient temples of India, places whose foundations survive long abandonment. But Beng Milea differs profoundly. It survived without human care, entirely at the mercy of the jungle. It endured alone and still stands. Its survival raises a profound question. Was this engineering intentional or accidental? Some argue the Khmer fully understood the physical properties of Phnom Kulen sandstone, the stone used across Angkor and built according to principles of gravitational self-support. Others propose a deliberate ground adjustment method similar to modern geotechnical engineering, placing stones so gravity pulls them into their most stable configuration. Whatever the technique, the results astonish modern archaeology. Beng Milea holds other enigmas: unexplored underground passages, deliberately defaced carvings, layout parallels with Angkor Wat. Yet all these mysteries pale beside one undeniable reality: the temple survived centuries of abandonment, emerging from ruin with its core intact. Like a wounded organism whose skeleton remains unbroken, it continues to exist, defying nature and time. Standing in its central courtyard, gazing at fallen vault stones, feeling the weighty silence, a silence that belongs only to places that have lived too long, one realizes Beng Milea is more than ruins. It is proof of extraordinary ancient thinking, a structure built not merely for use, but for endurance, even when forgotten. That is why Beng Milea is considered one of the most contemplative sites of Khmer civilization, a temple abandoned, yet never defeated. Within its ruins lies an unbroken soul, resilient, ancient, mysterious. Its survival challenges our modern understanding of lost architectural mastery. Hidden deep within the dense cloud forests of the northern Andes of Peru, surrounded by razor-sharp peaks and bottomless ravines, the ancient temple complex of Gran Pajaten emerges like the ghost of a vanished civilization. For centuries, it lay silently beneath layers of vegetation so thick that it was nearly impossible to recognize any sign of human presence. Only when 20th century expeditions accidentally followed local footpaths into the core of the Rio Abaseo cloud forest did the mystery of Gran Pajaten begin to surface. Yet the more archaeologists excavated and observed, the more they realized this was no ordinary ruin. It was a construction that challenged terrain, climate, and modern archaeological understanding itself. For a structure hidden deep within the cloud forest and concealed for centuries like Gran Pajaten, who do you think built it? And what do you believe is the real reason they chose such a perilous and inaccessible location? Share your thoughts in the comments below. From afar, Gran Pajaten looks unlike any other Andean site. The complex consists of dozens of circular buildings with tightly fitted stone walls, decorative bands, featuring human figures, birds, and spiral motifs, each revealed fleetingly when the clouds momentarily part, only to be swallowed again by heavy mist seconds later. It feels as though the site allows humans to see it only in brief glimpses before withdrawing back into time. These intricate carvings are not only beautiful, but also raise profound questions about craftsmanship, spirituality, and the symbolic systems the ancient builders sought to express. What makes Gran Pajaten one of the greatest mysteries of the Chachapoya civilization is not just its architecture or artistry, but its absolutely irrational location. The temple was built atop a mountain so steep that even standing still is difficult for a modern visitor, let alone constructing a stone complex weighing thousands of tons. The slopes here are prone to landslides coated with slippery moss due to constant humidity and completely lacking any nearby source of building stone. Yet someone an ancient culture still debated chose precisely this inhospitable summit to erect a perfectly shaped ceremonial center that has resisted collapse despite centuries of abandonment. A closer examination of the foundations revealed an even more astonishing truth. The entire complex appears to be anchored into an uneven natural bedrock, as if fused directly to the mountain itself. This raises pressing questions. How could ancient builders understand the geology and load-bearing capacities of such terrain? How did they determine the precise pressure points on a mountain nearly 3,000 meters high in a forest that is wet and unstable throughout the year? And even more puzzling, why choose such an impractical location at all? Many theories have been proposed. Some scholars argue that Gran Pajaten was a sacred ceremonial center intentionally isolated from daily life and reserved for elite rituals. The difficulty of reaching the site may have served as a spiritual filter only the chosen could ascend. Others believe the cloud forest setting connects to Chachapoya mythology, in which souls pass through the mist to reach the afterlife. If so, placing the temple at a high summit where clouds touch the earth may have held profound spiritual meaning. Yet all of this remains speculation. The Chachapoya left no written records, no definitive ritual artifacts were found. Even the attribution of the site to the Chachapoya is uncertain. Several architectural and artistic features appear older, possibly belonging to an even earlier culture. This makes the entire complex more enigmatic, like a book, with its first and final chapters torn out, leaving modern researchers to guess at its original story. Excavations revealed no adjacent residential zones, no kitchens, no dwellings, no auxiliary structures. This strongly suggests that Gran Pajaten was not a village or city, but a pure ceremonial center, visited only on special occasions. The absence of everyday artifacts highlights how the builders dedicated immense labor skill and planning to a purpose beyond ordinary life. Paradoxically, the impracticality of the location becomes understandable. Its very difficulty enhanced its sacred value. And we return to the greatest question: how did they construct it? To transport stones to such heights, the builders would have needed access roads or at least construction terraces. Yet modern surveys found none. No large ancient pathways, no quarries, no transport grooves. The stones seem to have appeared on site, though such material does not naturally occur on the summit. Some scholars suggest sophisticated communal labor systems or rope and pulley techniques far more advanced than previously assumed. Whatever the method, the level of organization required far exceeds our current understanding of pre-Inca Andean societies. Another striking feature is the flawless fit of its stones. Gran Pajaten uses no mortar, yet the walls remain so tight that moss grows over them without revealing clear gaps. This indicates exceptional engineering skill, so advanced that if placed beside Inca masterpieces like Machu Picchu, many would assume they were built by the same tradition. Ironically, the Inca did not significantly modify Gran Pajaten when they arrived. Their minimal presence suggests that even they regarded the site as too ancient, too sacred, or too mysterious to alter. Thus, Gran Pajaten remains suspended between past and present, physically real yet mythically elusive. Restoration attempts in the 1980s had to be halted because removing vegetation damaged the fragile walls. Any attempt to build an access route also risked destabilizing the mountain's delicate soil structure. As a result, scientists decided to let the site sleep, granting access only to a handful of research teams. Ironically, the less it is touched, the more mysterious it becomes, for untouched ruins yield fewer clues. For local communities, Gran Pahayatan is not an archaeological ruin, but a living legend. Stories speak of a round city in the clouds where ancestral spirits reside and which ordinary people should avoid. The 20th century discovery simply confirmed what folklore had whispered for generations. Even today, strict conservation rules and extreme isolation make it one of the least visited archaeological sites in the world. Perhaps this is what gives Gran Pahayatan its extraordinary allure. It is proof that ancient peoples challenge nature in ways modern science still cannot fully explain. It reminds us that history is not linear, that there were moments when human skill, engineering, and imagination far exceeded what we assign to their era. Above all, it symbolizes the courage of ancient communities, those who dared to look up at a nearly impossible mountain and say, "We will build there." From the ancient legends of Ireland to modern scientific surveys, the moat of Uisneach, Catstone, has always appeared as an entity that transcends the ordinary boundaries of archaeology and mythology, becoming the center of countless debates about its origins, functions, and meanings within the spiritual structure of ancient inhabitants. Situated on a hill, considered the Sacred Heart of Ireland, the Catstone carries within it layered strata of time, oral traditions spanning millennia, and mysteries that have never been fully deciphered. The Celts once regarded Uisneach as the place where heaven and earth converged, where the 5 ancient provinces of Ireland met in a geomantic configuration that scholars still cannot explain why their ancestors chose exactly this spot to mark the center of an entire island. Why do you think the Celts chose Uisneach as the Sacred Heart of Ireland? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The Catstone, located on a ceremonial mound, at first appears to be merely a natural boulder, yet its presence is inconsistent with the surrounding geology, prompting researchers to question whether it has been here since primordial times or was erected by ancient people for a particular purpose. The stone's shape is also a subject of debate, with many legends describing it as resembling a giant cat, while others see the form of a sleeping creature or a sacred symbol linked to the goddess Eru, the divine embodiment of Ireland's spirit. Catstone's association with the story of Eru's death turns it into a supernatural emblem, like a gateway to the world of gods or a point where energies believed by the Celts to connect the entire island with the unseen realm converge. Yet when archaeologists excavated and surveyed the area, what they found contradicted both legend and scientific logic. Surrounding the Catstone were ancient fire pits, ritual trenches, and numerous traces showing that this place had been used as a ceremonial ground for thousands of years, yet there were no permanent architectural structures at all. No temple, no palace, no sign of a political center as once theorized. Instead, Uisneach appeared to be a site reserved for primordial rituals existing outside the typical social model, tied to complex ceremonies such as the Beltane festival, when all fires across the island were extinguished and rekindled from the sacred flame on Uisneach's summit. Even stranger, these rituals occurred for thousands of years through various cultural periods, yet no evidence suggests any exclusive priestly class or centralized authority organizing them. It is as though this place was inherently sacred, and humans merely visited to receive or transmit a form of ancient knowledge beyond societal rules. Another mystery deepening the enigma of Catstone lies in the geomagnetic and astronomical phenomena recorded here. Some researchers note subtle magnetic fluctuations across Wisniak Hill, while certain points on the ceremonial mounds show relative alignment with the sun during equinoxes and solstices. However, there is no archaeological evidence confirming that the Celts intentionally selected or constructed the site based on astronomical principles. This has led to speculation that the location may have been used since pre-Celtic times, perhaps from an era that left no clear records or identifiable material culture. But the greatest, most significant, and most perplexing mystery is the question, who raised the Catstone, and for what purpose? This is not simply a technical question. It challenges the entire cognitive framework of prehistoric humans. The Catstone weighs tens of tons, and although some argue it may have been naturally exposed through geological shifts, many signs suggest it may have been pulled, rotated, or positioned deliberately. There are no visible tool marks, yet no evidence proving it was untouched. If humans erected it, how did they accomplish this without wheels, pulleys, or any known heavy transport technology of the time? And more importantly, why did they erect it at all? Some scholars believe it may have been the tomb of an ancient king, yet no burial evidence exists. Others suggest it served as a symbol, marking the division of the 5 ancient provinces, but the Catstone bears no carvings or markers indicating territorial boundaries. More daring theories propose that it could have been the focal point of a ritual related to the land's rebirth, where the Celts believed Ireland's energy was connected, sustained, and renewed each year. Some even claim the Catstone may belong to an even older tradition, remnants of late Stone Age peoples who built structures like Newgrange or the enigmatic henges long before Celtic culture emerged. But all remain conjectural. No ancient texts describe how the Catstone was erected. No archaeological traces reveal its true purpose. No evidence shows it was ever used as an altar, a burial site, an observatory, or any clear type of social structure. It is as if those who created it intended for it to remain beyond interpretation, or that the knowledge behind it has simply vanished with time, leaving behind only a shell while its soul has been erased by history. The Catstone's complete silence in the face of excavation measurement and scholarly interpretation has made it one of Ireland's oldest enigmas. The more it is studied, the more anomalies are uncovered, yet the fewer answers emerge. The Catstone stands like a colossal witness, challenging all definitions of prehistoric civilization and prompting humanity to question whether we truly understand the capabilities of our ancestors. Did they possess a form of knowledge now lost? Was Catstone a natural energy point recognized and revered by ancient people? Or is it merely a natural formation that humans projected layers of meaning onto? All possibilities remain open, with none strong enough to dismiss the others. And it is precisely this ambiguity that makes the moat of Wisniak Catstone not just a stone, but an unanswered question, a mystery that forces archaeology, history, mythology, and spirituality to stand beneath its shadow, attempting to uncover something time has hidden for thousands of years. To this day, the question, who erected the Catstone and for what purpose, remains one of ancient Europe's unbroken mysteries, and it may continue to challenge humanity for generations to come. The Al-Ula Jabal Ikma inscriptions have long been regarded as one of the deepest remaining mysteries of the Arabian Peninsula, a place where nature transformed rigid rock walls into pages stretching hundreds of meters, and ancient people turned them into the grandest repository of knowledge they ever left behind. When stepping into the narrow gorge leading to Jabal Ikmah, one feels as though entering a roofless, doorless, guardianless library overflowing with ancient texts to the point that even modern libraries appear small in comparison. The sheer density of inscriptions, combined with the diversity of textual forms, earned this place the title, the largest open-air library of Arabia. Yet the most remarkable and most puzzling aspect is that to this day, no one knows who wrote this library of stone, who stood before these massive rock faces to carve each symbol, or who carried the responsibility of preserving knowledge with a method capable of resisting thousands of years of erosion. In your opinion, what could explain how thousands of inscriptions were carved into the rocks of Jabal Ikmah without leaving any trace of the people who created them? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective might hold a clue. Not a single line among the thousands mentions an author, a scribe, or any indicator that this was created by a specific kingdom or a defined group of craftsmen. Everything feels like memory severed from its owner. This creates a strange paradox. Never in ancient history has such a massive corpus of writing provided so few clues about who produced it. Civilizations typically leave behind signatures in architecture artifacts or texts, yet Jabal Ikmah remains completely silent on its origins. The individuals who created these inscriptions seemingly wanted to communicate much to future generations, but deliberately concealed their identity. This raises a major question. How can a location containing such a massive amount of writing show no trace of the people who once lived there? There are no ancient towns, no fortresses, no major burial grounds, no evidence of any permanent settlement, only rocks and inscriptions. This makes Jabal Ikmah an exceptional phenomenon, a center of knowledge disconnected from any city. Archaeologists have attempted to explain this through various hypotheses. Some believe it was once a sacred stop along the incense route where traders from multiple regions paused to carve prayers or messages onto the rock, leaving behind a symbolic mark of their presence. The variety of languages, from Datanitic, Thamudic, Minaic, and Nabatean to unidentified scripts, supports this theory, suggesting Jabal Ikmah may have been a crossroads of cultures. But if this were true, why does no historical record mention Jabal Ikmah as a major ritual or commercial center? And more importantly, why did people from faraway lands carve inscriptions here rather than elsewhere? Another theory proposes that Jabal Ikmah once served as a hidden administrative center where laws, transactions, and important records were carved into stone so they could survive far longer than parchment or papyrus. This seems plausible because many inscriptions reference rituals, names, genealogies, and legal matters. Yet no trace of government structures has been found nearby. If Jabal Ikmah was truly a place where important documents were carved into stone, those who carried out the work would have needed organization tools, housing, and storage for administrative activities, but none of these have been discovered. Another bold hypothesis suggests Jabal Ikmah was a special pilgrimage site where participants were required to carve vows, prayers, or words of gratitude onto the rock, sending messages directly to the divine through stone as the medium. If so, the absence of authors makes sense. The carver was merely part of the ritual, not the creator of knowledge. However, this theory does not answer the biggest question. Why does the volume of writing span so many generations? Did this ritual truly persist for hundreds of years, unchanged? And if it was a compulsory ritual, why is there no written description of it elsewhere? Deepening the mystery is the overwhelming density of inscriptions on many rock faces. Some surfaces are almost completely filled with text, leaving no empty space. This demonstrates not only the massive labor involved, but also a continuous, organized, rule-governed tradition of inscription. Yet once again, no one knows who performed it. For years, experts have analyzed these texts, hoping that a particular passage might reveal the identity of the writers or the reason behind the creation of this library. But all that has been found are personal names, prayers, activity descriptions, or ritual phrases. No inscription mentions a scribe, carver, keeper of knowledge, or guardian of the library. No text expresses an intention to build or preserve knowledge for future generations. This leads to the impression that Jabal Ikma was not intentionally created to be a library, yet ultimately became one in an unforeseen way. Could it be that the inscriptions were the result of a tradition so long-lasting that those who participated were unaware of contributing to an enormous archive? Could this repository be the cumulative product of countless generations, each adding small pieces to a system they never fully understood? If so, Jabal Ikma would be one of the rarest examples in human history of a knowledge center without a founder. Yet the deepest mystery remains the absence of any tools or stone-carving workshops, despite the immense volume of inscriptions suggesting continuous, highly skilled labor. How could people carve thousands of deep, even symbols into hard stone without leaving behind fragments, tools, or any trace of a working site? This unanswered question is a major reason why this open-air library continues to puzzle researchers. All these elements make the Al-Ula Jabal Ikma inscriptions a unique phenomenon. A colossal library created by countless hands, yet all of those hands have vanished from history. No identities, no traces, no origins, only the inscriptions themselves remain the sole evidence that these people once existed, thought, believed, and left messages for a future world they likely never imagined. This open-air library is not only the largest in Arabia, but also a repository of unsolved knowledge, a place where the past speaks abundantly yet refuses to reveal the voices behind its words. The Queen Hatshepsut Temple, or Djeseru, the sublime of the sublimes, is one of the structures that has left the world in awe of the talent, ambition, and mystery of ancient Egyptian civilization. Built around the 15th century BCE and standing for millennia at the base of the Deir el-Bahari cliffs, the temple stands as an architectural declaration defying time itself. Its grand terraces, endless colonnades, and intricate reliefs tell the story of an extraordinary female pharaoh, Hatshepsut. Yet what makes the temple one of Egypt's greatest enigmas is not only its solemn beauty, but the way it was created, a construction feat that modern scholars still cannot fully explain. Hatshepsut did not simply want to build a temple, she wanted to carve her existence into stone, into mountains, into eternity. And what remains today proves that she succeeded in a way far beyond the standards of her age. What do you think allowed the ancient Egyptians to transport and erect the massive stone blocks at the Queen Hatshepsut Temple? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The temple was constructed using a terraced architectural style consisting of 3 monumental levels connected by long ramps forming an almost perfectly symmetrical whole. When the morning sunlight touches its colonnades, the entire structure seems to glow and merge with the mountainside behind it, giving the impression that it has grown out of the rock. Though it may have been inspired by the nearby Temple of Mentuhotep II, the scale and refinement of Hatshepsut's temple far surpass all earlier constructions. The near-perfect symmetry and precision raise a fundamental question: how 3,500 years ago could they draft, measure, and execute a structure with deviations of only millimeters while using metal tools that were still extremely primitive? This is one of the many reasons why the temple has been regarded as an unexplainable masterpiece. The man associated with the temple's design is Senenmut, one of the most enigmatic figures in Egyptian history. He is believed to have been the chief architect, yet official records remain strangely silent about his involvement. Only small inscriptions hidden in obscure corners or on the ceilings of certain chambers confirm his presence in the construction. No one knows why his name was erased from many places. Was he in a personal relationship with Hatshepsut that threatened the political order, or was he deliberately erased by rivals seeking to remove him from history? The uncertainty surrounding Senenmut has contributed greatly to the temple's aura of mystery, as if it were designed by a genius operating from the shadows. The temple's reliefs narrate one of ancient Egypt's most fascinating episodes, the expedition to the land of Punt, a place described as abundant in gold incense and exotic goods. Remarkably, archaeologists today still cannot pinpoint where Punt actually was. Some suggest Eritrea or Somalia, others propose Yemen, and some believe it was a now lost region. The depictions of the people of Punt, its flora and fauna, and the large sea vessels making the journey raise further questions. Was Hatshepsut recounting history, or was she implying a connection with a mysterious yet advanced culture? In any case, these reliefs show that the temple was not merely a place of worship, but also a political and ideological instrument designed to broadcast the achievements and power of a female pharaoh. Yet the aspect that most astonishes modern scholars is the technology of stone quarrying and the transportation of massive materials used to build the temple. The structure was carved deep into the limestone cliffs, while also incorporating thousands of quarried stone blocks that were cut, transported, and placed with astonishing precision. The columns of the first terrace alone weighed tens of tons. Some Sphinx statues that once lined the causeway weighed between 20 and 30 tons each. How more than 35 centuries ago could the Egyptians haul such immense blocks up elevated terraces using long ramps? Ramps could be built, but maintaining their slope, ensuring stability, and supporting the combined weight of hundreds of workers pulling multi-ton blocks presents a challenge that modern reconstructions still fail to fully address. To carve the temple into the cliffs, Egyptian workers relied on copper tools and hard stones. But copper is too soft to create the straight, sharp, and perfectly vertical cuts seen today. This raises the question of whether they used other techniques such as heating the rock, employing abrasive sands, or methods involving pressure, none of which are recorded in surviving texts. Some cut marks appear to have been produced by tools rotating at high speed, something conventional Egyptology cannot confirm existed at the time. Extracting each massive stone slab from the mountain without cracking it was an achievement in itself. Transporting it across uneven terrain, lifting it to great heights, aligning it precisely, and setting it upright was a second achievement. Ensuring the entire structure remained stable for millennia was the third. These three monumental feats are why the technology behind the temple's construction remains one of the most perplexing mysteries in Egyptology. Some modern scholars propose that ramps spiraled around the structure to raise the stones, yet no physical remains of such massive ramps have been found. Others suggest the use of levers and wooden rollers, though wood was scarce in the region. Still others argue that the temple was built during a greener climatic period when wood may have been more abundant, but this lacks strong evidence. These debates show that the construction of the temple cannot be explained by a simple model. It required organization, manpower, tools, and material expertise far beyond what we typically imagine for that era. Furthermore, many stone blocks in the temple are joined so tightly that not even a blade can fit between them. The flatness of floors and walls continues to impress modern engineers. Door joints, staircases, and block alignments all exhibit a precision that rivals or exceeds many modern stone constructions. This has fueled debates about whether the ancient Egyptians possessed advanced knowledge of geometry and astronomy. Some studies suggest that the temple's axis aligns precisely with the sunrise on important feast days of the god Amun, implying the use of astronomical instruments unrecorded in surviving documents. Although the temple was built to honor Hatshepsut, ironically, most depictions of her were deliberately erased after her death. Statues and reliefs bearing her image were scraped away with clear intent. Curiously, not all were destroyed. Some areas were left untouched, while others were entirely defaced. This selective destruction suggests a nuanced political strategy rather than mere personal resentment. Scholars cannot determine whether Thutmose III's stepson of Hatshepsut erased her legacy to consolidate royal power, whether the priests of Amun sought to restore male-dominated religious order. The targeted nature of the erasure deepens the temple's mystery, as if history itself were intentionally leaving gaps for future generations to ponder. Another mystery is that there is no evidence that Hatshepsut was ever buried in the temple, despite it being her mortuary temple. Some theories argue that the temple served only as a site for spiritual rites, while her actual tomb lies deep within the Valley of the Kings. This opens the possibility that Egyptian architecture was not merely designed to house bodies, but functioned as a network of spiritual and energetic structures within their religious system, and that Hatshepsut's temple was one of its most important nodes. Through thousands of years of harsh weather, earthquakes, climate changes, and even deliberate destruction, the Hatshepsut temple still stands proudly in the Luxor desert. It is like a stone time machine, preserving secrets that modern humans are still struggling to decode. Every stone is exactly where it belongs. Every relief tells a different story. Every gap, whether carved by time or human hands, adds to the temple's enigmatic presence like a myth, with its final chapter missing. Today, even with machinery, three-dimensional modeling, laser scanning, and simulation technologies, no one can provide a definitive answer to the question, how did the ancient Egyptians quarry, transport, and construct a structure as massive as the Queen Hatshepsut Temple, with precision that surpasses modern standards? The tools were too simple, the scale too vast, the terrain too challenging, and the precision too perfect. All these contradictions make the temple one of the clearest reminders that human history still contains vast blank spaces. And thus the Queen Hatshepsut Temple is not merely a monument. It is a challenge, a mystery carved in stone, an unfinished chapter in the story of humanity, waiting for the future to continue writing it. Amid the harsh Siberian landscape, where icy winds cut across the steppes and snow blankets the land for many months of the year, archaeologists discovered one of the most peculiar and enigmatic funerary traditions in human history. The Tashtik funeral masks, the burial masks of the Tashtik culture, which existed from around the 1st century to the 5th century. Buried deep within ancient tombs for millennia, these ghostly white faces, smooth as porcelain with wide hollow eyes and mysterious red-black decorations, emerged before researchers as if a long-lost civilization were whispering fragments of its forgotten stories. Since their excavation, the Tashtik masks have been regarded as evidence of an unusual death ritual, an artistic style far removed from its geographical context, and especially a sculptural technique so refined that few believe it was created over 1,500 years ago. The mystery deepens when considering that the Tashtik people were not a flourishing urban society, but descendants of semi-nomadic groups surviving in the cold valleys of southern Siberia. How then were they able to create faces so exquisitely crafted that they challenge the expectations of their time? When you look at these mysterious Tashtik plaster faces, pale, expressionless, and crafted with techniques far beyond their time, what do you think truly lies behind this extraordinary ritual and craftsmanship? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Among archaeological discoveries, these funeral masks were crafted from a mixture of plaster, organic glue, and lime, a material composition familiar to Mediterranean or Central Asian arts, yet entirely foreign among Siberian nomadic groups. Strangely enough, Tashtik plaster is remarkably uniform, pure, and capable of capturing fine detail, something even more advanced cultures rarely achieved. Many scholars believe the Tashtik people mastered the technique of casting from a real human face, a process requiring precise control of setting time, material consistency, and an exceptionally smooth finish. If true, their skill surpasses everything previously assumed about Siberian communities. But the most shocking aspect is how they applied this technique to the dead. The Tashtik did not preserve intact bodies. They cremated their dead, gathered the remaining bones and ashes, and placed them inside life-sized effigies made of leather or fabric. The plaster mask was then placed onto this artificial body as if the soul of the deceased needed a new face to journey into the afterlife. Creating a new body for someone who had been cremated is not only bizarre, but deeply symbolic. Yet no inscriptions, drawings, or Tashtik texts survive to explain this ritual. All that remains are the silent faces of plaster. Even more surprising is that the aesthetics of the Tashtik masks do not resemble any known Siberian group. The large eyes, curved lashes, slender noses, these features evoke the artistic styles of Central Asia, Persia, or even Hellenistic cultures. Some masks bear red-black motifs along the cheeks, resembling tattoos, possibly representing deities, warriors, or rites of passage. Others display spiral or net-like patterns, leaving researchers puzzled. Are these tribal symbols or magical signs to guide the soul? From a modern viewpoint, these unfamiliar artistic elements make the Tashtik masks appear to emerge from a hybrid, undocumented civilization. What astonishes researchers most is the extraordinary precision of the facial details. Many masks exhibit realism so advanced. It seems almost modern, delicately carved eyelids, finely shaped noses, lips colored in soft red pigments to appear lifelike, darkened eyebrows, and especially the minute scraping marks that are impossible to achieve with crude tools. Some masks even contain eyes inlaid with glass or minerals, evoking a hauntingly lifelike gaze. Their anatomical accuracy forces sculptural experts to ask, what tools did the Tashtik people use? Attempts to reproduce the masks using bronze or bone tools, the materials assumed to be available to the Tashtik, failed to achieve the same smoothness or sharpness. This raises the possibility that they possessed high-quality metal tools not yet discovered, or they learned advanced techniques from distant civilizations through undocumented trade routes. Some researchers even claim Tashtik craftsmanship resembles Roman or Greek death mask-making techniques, yet no evidence suggests direct contact. If such a connection existed, it would challenge our understanding of cultural interaction in ancient Siberia. The mystery deepens further. Many burial sites include masks made for children crafted with the same level of sophistication as those for adults. The fact that a child who had not experienced war or earned social status received an elaborate plaster mask has sparked debate. Were these masks markers of elite lineage, or did the entire Tashtik community participate in the ritual? Some mass burials contain dozens of masks, suggesting large communal ceremonies, perhaps sacrifices or clan memorials. None of these interpretations have definitive answers. The final and eeriest mystery is the abrupt disappearance of the Tashtik funerary mask tradition. From the 5th century onward, the masks vanish entirely. The ritual ceases, the techniques fade, and no transitional forms are found. A tradition that flourished for centuries simply dissolved without trace. What happened to the Tashtik people? Disease, war, absorption into another culture, or a sudden shift in belief systems? No archaeological evidence is strong enough to explain this. Like the blank stares of the plaster faces themselves, the Tashtik culture fades into silence. Today, when Tashtik masks are displayed in museums, viewers often feel an uncanny sensation, as though they are looking into a moment frozen in time, staring into the faces of individuals who lived, breathed, fought, and died 1,500 years ago. Every fine scrape, every curve of an eyelash, every stroke of red pigment on the cheeks carries the touch of an anonymous artisan, someone whose sculpting skill surpassed the expectations of their age. No one knows their names, where they learned their techniques, or why the tradition vanished. All we know is that across the Siberian steppes, beneath layers of ancient frost, the Tashtik left behind one of archaeology's most hauntingly beautiful mysteries: plaster faces that are both alluring and terrifying, timeless and transcendent. A reminder that sometimes what makes a civilization immortal is not its cities or monuments, but the face it leaves behind for death. In the history of architecture and religious traditions across the Indonesian archipelago, very few structures evoke a sense of being out of time and out of culture the way the Candi Suku Pyramid Temple does. Standing on the slopes of Mount Lau at an altitude of over 1,000 meters, this temple has long perplexed archaeologists, religious historians, and scholars of symbolism because of its unorthodox nature. Its stepped pyramid architecture, strange fertility reliefs, fragmented stone statues, unlike any standard of Majapahit art, and above all, the great unanswered question of its true purpose, have made Candi Suku a kind of ancient code waiting to be deciphered, a ruin that seems to conceal a deeper, more mysterious layer of civilization beneath the recorded surface of history. If you had to choose one theory about the true purpose of Candi Suku, a temple, a shamanic ritual center, or a royal purification site, which one do you find most convincing? Share your answer in the comments below. When viewed from afar, the pyramid shape of Candi Suku is striking. While traditional Hindu Javanese architecture is based on tall peaked towers, Meru symbolizing Mount Meru of the Hindu cosmos, this temple adopts a rough-stepped form reminiscent of Mesoamerican pyramids, those of the Maya or Aztec on the other side of the globe. This unusual form breaks every aesthetic rule of the Majapahit Empire and raises an important question: were the Javanese of this era influenced by another spiritual tradition, perhaps a secret or ancient system preceding the arrival of Hinduism in this region? The deeper scholars study the site, the more evidence emerges, suggesting that Candi Suku is not merely a late Majapahit creation, but may have been built upon a much older sacred ceremonial ground. Yet architecture is only part of the mystery. The reliefs, carved into Kandi-suku, provoke even more questions. Most notable is the system of fertility symbolism, carved in a raw, completely unapologetic manner, something extremely rare in Javanese religious art. Some reliefs depict male and female genitalia in ritual contexts. Others show human figures in strange anatomical poses, as if they have been disassembled or are undergoing some form of ritual examination. Although fertility symbolism exists across many Southeast Asian cultures, the expressions seen at Kandi-suku possess an unusually mystical, even dark tone, suggesting they may be fragments of an esoteric system involving rebirth, transformation, and life energy themes commonly found in indigenous shamanic rites. This only complicates the theories surrounding the temple's origins and purpose. Among the controversial reliefs, the famous horse examination panel, often cited as one of Java's most mysterious artworks, stands out as particularly perplexing. It depicts a horse whose sexual organs are being inspected under the supervision of a figure who appears to hold ritual authority. No Hindu texts or Javanese records describe any such ritual, leading scholars to propose various theories. It may represent a coronation rite, a symbolic purification process, or a surviving fragment of a pre-Hindu fertility tradition. Whatever it represents, the relief indicates that the temple was connected to a type of ritual far outside the boundaries of mainstream religion. But all of this merely introduces the most important question: what exactly was Kandi-suku used for? This is the core mystery of the site, one that scholars have debated since the 19th century. One school of thought argues that Kandi-suku was simply a Hindu temple built during the final phase of Majapahit, a period of cultural decline in which traditional religion began to destabilize and local practices resurfaced. Under this interpretation, the strange architecture and reliefs reflect the diversity of late-era religious expression. But this explanation faces a major problem. If suku were merely a Hindu variation, why are its symbols so radically different, even contradictory, to the norms of Hindu Javanese religious art? A second theory suggests that the temple functioned as a shamanic ceremonial center, a site for rituals involving spiritual death and rebirth. The fragmented statues, disassembled bodies, and fertility motifs could symbolize the shamanic journey of transformation. The steep ascent toward the top of the pyramid may represent the symbolic climb of an initiate. If this theory is correct, Kandi-suku was not just a place of worship, but a transformational space, a site where individuals underwent spiritual processes to reach purification or heightened power. The third and most widely discussed hypothesis proposes that Kandi-suku served an extraordinarily specific role, a royal purification site or a ceremonial station used during the transfer of kingship in the Majapahit court. The fertility symbols, the horse imagery, and the emphasis on masculine potency may function as metaphors for royal authority, an essential concept in Southeast Asian kingship. Certain architectural features, such as the steep staircase leading into the central area and its isolated location on Mount Lao, support the idea that this was a place intended for exclusive restricted rites, far removed from ordinary life. If true, the temple would not merely be a religious site, but a political mechanism, a ritual gateway connecting the ruler to sacred cosmic legitimacy. Yet none of these theories is completely convincing. No ancient text describes the function of Kandi-suku. No clear traces of mainstream religious systems appear. No evidence directly links the temple to royal rituals. And none of the known belief systems fully explains the illogical nature of the symbols carved here. All that remains are fragmented clues, unusual stones. And the unanswered question, what exactly happened at this place? What makes the mystery more compelling is the silence of history itself. Candi Suku dates to the 15th century, a time when Majapahit was collapsing and ideological systems were breaking down, replaced by an eclectic mix of resurfacing traditions. In this context, the temple may represent a return to deeper indigenous spirituality or an attempt to restore waning royal power through sacred rites. But all such interpretations remain speculative. The paths leading to the truth seem permanently obscured by the fog of time. Today, even as visitors stand before the ancient steps, touch the rough reliefs, and watch the sunset cast dramatic shadows over the strange pyramid form, the true purpose of Candi Suku continues to evade every conclusion. It is not merely an archaeological puzzle, it is a reminder that vast parts of human history remain unwritten. Candi Suku endures like a half-opened door, enough to let us sense the presence of a deep ritual system, but not enough to let us understand it fully. And perhaps that is the temple's greatest allure. It allows us to gaze into the past, not as a completed story, but as a question still awaiting its answer. The Seahenge Oak Circle is one of the most mysterious prehistoric monuments ever discovered along the windswept coast of Norfolk, a structure that challenges conventional interpretations and continually fuels debate about the beliefs, rituals, and technical abilities of the Bronze Age communities who built it. It appeared unexpectedly when the sand retreated in the year 1998 after thousands of years buried beneath tidal mud. Seahenge emerged as a wooden circle consisting of more than 55 oak posts surrounding a massive inverted oak stump at the center, like a symbolic axis of the cosmos. This sudden appearance, when storms swept away layers of sediment, gave the monument an almost mythical quality, as if the structure itself had chosen the moment to return to the human world. Archaeologists quickly recognized its significance. Unlike the stone monuments that dominate prehistoric studies, Seahenge is a rare example of ceremonial wooden architecture, preserved under exceptional conditions, locked within anaerobic mud that prevented decay for more than 4,000 years. What do you think? The finely carved bronze axe marks on the Seahenge oak posts reveal about the true technological abilities of Bronze Age people. Were they simply skilled craftsmen? Or could they have possessed a form of knowledge or technology that we still haven't fully understood today? Share your thoughts in the comments below. But the greatest mysteries lay not only in its preservation, but in its construction and purpose. The inverted stump, with roots splayed upward like reaching arms, suggested a ritualistic symbolism not paralleled elsewhere in Europe, while the circular arrangement of posts, split-shaped and angled in a consistent pattern, hinted at an intentionality far beyond simple boundary marking. Yet among all the questions surrounding Seahenge, one aspect stands out as the most striking and technically impressive: the astonishing craftsmanship revealed in the bronze axe marks carved into the oak timbers. These marks, more than any other detail, testify to a level of precision and mastery that rewrites assumptions about Bronze Age woodworking. Each post displays a consistency of angle force and sequence, indicating that skilled artisans, likely part of a specialized ritual craft tradition, worked systematically to fell shape and position the trees. The oak used was old, dense, and incredibly hard, requiring a tremendous understanding of how to manipulate tools of early metallurgy. Bronze axes of the period were not crude instruments. They were finely cast, carefully honed, and used with a degree of expertise that modern woodworkers have found remarkable. Experimental archaeology has shown that replicating these cuts requires not only strength but nuanced technique. The wielder must strike at precisely the right angle to split the timber cleanly without fracturing it unpredictably. The C-henge posts bear the imprint of this mastery. Their surfaces show uniform V-shaped grooves, sometimes layered in rhythmic patterns that reveal the movement of the craftsman's body swing shift strike, correct and embodied knowledge passed down through generations. Even more astonishing is that these marks demonstrate multiple axes crafted to nearly identical specifications, suggesting either a centralized metallurgical tradition or a shared regional technology of high sophistication. The Bronze Age community behind C-henge was not merely functional and survival-oriented. They were capable of producing tools and executing labor-intensive projects with ceremonial purpose and technical finesse. The construction of the circle would have required coordination of labor at a scale rarely recognized for coastal communities of the time, selecting the trees, felling them with bronze tools, transporting enormous logs across marshland, setting the posts into deep sockets while maintaining a tight, circular geometry, and finally hoisting the central stump upside down, a feat demanding both engineering and ritual significance. This stump, removed from its natural orientation and forcefully inverted, represented a conceptual inversion of the natural world, a symbolic axis that scholars propose may have been connected to funerary rites, solar observances, or cosmological beliefs about the boundary between life and death. Yet no single interpretation captures the full complexity of the structure. Some theories propose C-henge was a site for excarnation, where bodies were placed atop the inverted stump to undergo natural decomposition prior to burial. Others suggest celestial alignments involving the summer solstice and the position of the rising sun may have shaped its design. Still others propose it acted as a threshold between worlds, a liminal enclosure where rituals of renewal or seasonal transition were performed. Adding to the mystery, another timber monument, Home 2, was discovered nearby, further complicating the understanding of this ritual landscape. Home 2 shows clearer evidence of funerary practice, sparking the hypothesis that C-henge and its neighbor formed part of a broader ceremonial complex, each monument serving different but interconnected spiritual functions. The presence of two such structures in close proximity suggests a sophisticated ritual system embedded within local Bronze Age culture, one that has left almost no written or material record beyond these wooden sanctuaries emerging from ancient mud. As C-henge was excavated and relocated for preservation, it ignited controversy among modern spiritual groups who believed the monument should remain in its original location, treating it as a sacred site even millennia after its creators vanished. Their protests unintentionally echoed the monument's ancient aura. C-henge continues to inspire reverence, speculation, and emotional connection long after its cultural context has been lost. What remains today is a convergence of myth and archaeology, a relic from a civilization that understood wood with a precision and artistry often underestimated in prehistoric narratives. The bronze axe marks those delicate yet powerful signatures left by ones that shape the circle, form the most direct connection to the people who built C-henge. Each groove offers a glimpse of human intention, of ritual importance, of a technological capability that defies the stereotype of Bronze Age societies as primitive or unsophisticated. Through these marks, we see not only craftsmanship, but a worldview in which engineering, religion, and environment were intertwined. C-henge, therefore, is more than a wooden circle. It is a portal into the Bronze Age mind, an embodiment of labor, symbolic structure, and natural landscape. It stands at the intersection of archaeology and enigma, a testament to what humanity could achieve with limited materials but profound purpose. Even after extensive research, its ultimate meaning remains tantalizingly out of reach, suspended between fact and speculation, preserved in mud and memory. And perhaps that is its greatest power, that a circle of ancient oak marked with the strokes of bronze tools wielded by skilled hands 4,000 years ago can still challenge our understanding of the past and remind us that the people who built it were not merely surviving, they were creating, believing, and leaving behind mysteries that endure long after their world has disappeared. Amid the vast, moon-like volcanic landscape of Archaeological, where ancient lava flows have solidified into countless razor-sharp basalt slabs, lies one of the most enigmatic prehistoric constructions: stone kites, massive stone structures shaped like giant kites that only become fully recognizable when viewed from the sky. The strangest aspect is this: although the complete shape cannot be seen from ground-level, ancient builders still crafted astonishingly symmetrical outlines. Why would a community from nearly 10,000 years ago create structures that only make sense from a vantage point they seemingly could not reach? That mystery serves as the gateway into exploring a level of ancient intellect, perhaps far more complex than we have imagined. Do you think these stone kites were merely hunting traps, or could they have served a deeper purpose? Perhaps a ritual signal, a territorial marker, or even a message directed toward the sky? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The stone kites stretch across the basalt fields of Archaeological on an immense scale. Each kite is formed by two long stone walls, sometimes hundreds of meters to several kilometers, widening like a funnel before narrowing toward a small area believed to be an animal enclosure. Seen from above, the layout is unmistakable, a deliberate geometric structure with a level of symmetry rare for constructions of that era. But standing on the ground, one sees only low walls scattered across rugged volcanic terrain. No vantage point would have allowed ancient people to observe the full shape. This reality forces researchers to ask, how did they visualize the kite shape? Did they possess large-scale surveying methods or diagrammatic systems that remain unsolved today? Any structure recognizable only from above naturally gives rise to heated debate. Were these symbolic signals, orientation markers, giant ritual ground drawings akin to the Nazca lines in Peru? Yet stone kites differ significantly. They are not surface drawings, but massive mechanical constructions built from thousands of heavy basalt stones. Coordinating such an undertaking required a tightly organized community with division of labor and long-term planning, challenging the long-held belief that Neolithic peoples were merely small, nomadic groups. A kite stretching several kilometers could not have been built by a few individuals in a short time. It implies social organization far beyond what we once assumed they possessed. What makes stone kites even stranger is not just their size, but their consistent design. Scattered across a vast volcanic area, hundreds or even thousands of kites share nearly identical layouts, two widening arms converging toward a single point. It is as if they were all built from a shared blueprint, transmitted from generation to generation. No one knows how that blueprint was recorded: symbols on stone, oral tradition, or some natural terrain measurement method. What is certain is that these structures were not made casually. Their layouts repeat with astonishing precision in a time long before modern measurement tools existed. Another puzzle lies in the experience of the builders themselves. From ground level, the low walls offer no sense of a complete geometric shape. Workers likely saw only small fragments of the structure. They had no way of knowing whether the segment they were building aligned with another segment hundreds of meters away. Yet the final result shows every component in its proper place. Correct angles, correct proportions. Did they use temporary markers? Some form of exceptional spatial cognition? One theory suggests they used horizon markers aligning kite openings with the sun's position or migratory routes of animals. A more daring hypothesis claims they may have climbed nearby volcanic craters to observe the overall form. However, surveys reveal that most stone kites cannot be fully seen even from the tallest nearby peaks. This deepens the mystery even further. Beyond their uncanny shape, stone kites possess an astonishing antiquity. Many have been dated to nearly 9,000 years old, meaning they predate the pyramids of Egypt and the earliest urban civilizations. A structure of such scale surviving millennia implies it once held great significance for ancient societies. Yet its true purpose remains unanswered. The most common theory claims stone kites were large-scale animal traps. The long walls channeled wild animals into the narrow pen where they could be more easily captured. This sounds logical, but several contradictions arise. First, many kites are located in barren areas with little evidence of past wildlife. Second, the pen is often far too small to contain the number of animals that a multi-kilometer funnel could drive in. Third, if the goal were merely hunting, why build hundreds or thousands of identical structures across such a vast region? Archaeologists increasingly suspect that their function was not solely for hunting. Another line of research proposes that stone kites had ritualistic, symbolic, or territorial functions. The kite shape, with its outward spreading arms, may represent open arms, a gesture of welcome or protection. But if symbolic, why make them enormous enough to be visible only from above? Could ancient people have intended them as messages to an observer in a higher realm, mountaintop spirits, divine birds, or cosmological entities? These questions remain unresolved within the academic community. Some speculate the stone kites may relate to ancient routes guiding migration paths or marking directions across featureless volcanic plains. But the consistency of their angles and symmetrical layouts weakens this idea. If the goal was simply directional marking, there would be no need for such extremely long walls or highly specific shapes. Regardless of their purpose, constructing stone kites required immense labor. Collecting basalt fragments across jagged volcanic terrain alone would have been a major challenge. Yet ancient builders not only gathered the stones, they arranged them into long, continuous walls, some extending across valleys and uneven ground. To accomplish this, they must have understood the landscape, deeply maintained, coordinated labor systems, and sustained work over long periods. This demonstrates that highly organized and complex communities existed during an era often assumed to consist solely of loosely connected nomadic groups. When Western explorers surveyed the region by air in the 20th century, they first recognized the kite-like shapes of these structures. They were astonished that ancient people had built forms seemingly intended to be viewed from the sky. From that moment, stone kites entered the catalogue of the Middle East's greatest archaeological enigmas. Even today, with satellite imagery, reconnaissance aircraft, and three-dimensional scanning, we still cannot fully comprehend their design principles or operational purpose. Stone kites may be remnants of a type of knowledge humanity has since lost: knowledge of spatial measurement, animal behavior, or ancient sky-related rituals. Or perhaps they simply demonstrate that we have long underestimated prehistoric intelligence. Whatever the truth, stone kites force us to reconsider human history with humility, reminding us that ancient people may have understood their world in ways beyond our expectations. And among all these mysteries, the giant kite shape, visible only from the sky, remains the most profound question. How did they know? Why create something they themselves could not see? The answer may lie buried beneath Harat Kebar's basalt fields or lost to the silence of time. Until a new discovery emerges, the stone kites will continue to stretch across the desert, reminding us that human history is never simple, and the past is always deeper than we imagine. The Mold Gold Cape is one of the artifacts that has bewildered archaeologists, filling them with astonishment and deep skepticism about what we truly know regarding the technological capabilities of humans during the Bronze Age. When the first fragments of gold were discovered in the year 1833 in Mold, Wales, no one could have imagined that they belonged to a monolithic gold cape crafted with a level of refinement far exceeding every standard previously recorded in history. From that moment, the cape became a symbol of ancient mystery, a testament suggesting that we may have underestimated the technological capacities of cultures that existed more than 3 millennia ago. The first shock researchers encountered was that the cape was made from a single sheet of gold. No joints, no seams, no patched areas, just one large sheet of gold, hammered thin, curved, and shaped to fit tightly around the chest and shoulders. This structure indicates that ancient craftsmen possessed metallurgical knowledge far beyond what had been considered possible in that era. Producing such a large gold sheet required significant refining processes and extremely precise control of temperature, ductility, and thinness. Any slight error would cause the entire sheet to crack, tear, or deform beyond repair. In your opinion, how could ancient people create a flawless single-sheet gold cape with such perfection? Share your thoughts in the comments below. But the strangeness of the Mold Gold Cape does not stop there. The cape is decorated with an extremely intricate system of patterns embossed into countless motifs, crescents, rope-like bands, dotted textures, and wave-like strips. They repeat with nearly perfect rhythm, showing no deviation even by a fraction of a millimeter. This required not only highly sophisticated stamping tools, but also demanded that the craftsman calculate the stretching curvature and deformation of the gold sheet in advance, so that the patterns would not distort once the cape was shaped in 3 dimensions. There is no archaeological evidence that Bronze Age craftsmen in Wales possessed tools of such precision. No workshops, no wooden or leather molds, and no technological infrastructure have been found that could account for the perfection displayed on this cape. And this is where the greatest mystery of the Mold Gold Cape emerges: a uniform gold hammering technique, something unmatched by any known workshop ever discovered. When specialists analyzed the cape using spectroscopy and micro-thickness measurements, they found that the sheet of gold possessed an astonishingly even thickness. This contradicts everything we know about Bronze Age gold working, which typically produced sheets with highly inconsistent thickness prone to tearing. The cape, however, differs dramatically. Its thickness varies intentionally only in high-stress areas such as the shoulders, while the decorative regions were thinned with absolute precision, yet remained strong enough to withstand hundreds of embossed impressions. This uniformity suggests a technique involving multi-stage hammering or rolling, yet no evidence shows that people of that era possessed tools or technologies capable of producing such results on a large scale. No specialized hammers, no sufficiently broad anvils, no traces of metal flattening systems have been found. How then did they accomplish this? Some hypotheses propose that the craftsmen might have used stone rollers, but no corresponding artifacts have ever been unearthed. Others argue that they may have repeatedly heated the gold to soften it during the hammering process, But such a method requires extremely stable temperatures, something not yet observed in any Bronze Age furnaces in that region. More daring scholars theorize the existence of mobile workshops carried by skilled artisans who traveled across territories with specialized tools, leaving behind no permanent traces for archaeology to discover. But again, this remains speculation unsupported by physical evidence. Going deeper into the gold-working methods, researchers uncovered a stunning detail. The motifs were stamped layer by layer, meaning the artisan had to imprint a large motif first and then press smaller details on top without distorting the previous layer. This requires extraordinarily fine force control. Press too hard and the sheet would tear. Press too lightly and the pattern would not appear. Yet on the mold gold cape, all levels of pressure appear perfectly uniform, as if the craftsman had access to a device capable of measuring force, something that undeniably did not exist in that time. So had they developed an incredibly refined, tactile skill? Or had they mastered a technique that has since vanished from human knowledge? From a sociological perspective, the cape raises another perplexing question. If ancient people possessed such advanced metallurgical skills, why is the mold gold cape the only known artifact of its kind? This leads to two possibilities. Either the cape was the product of a unique ritual-specialized craft tradition created only once, or it belonged to a series of similar objects, most of which were later lost, recycled, or remain buried in unexplored areas. Due to insufficient evidence, the mystery remains. Some scholars even propose that the cape may have been the work of a group of itinerant foreign craftsmen who traveled across Europe, introducing advanced techniques unfamiliar to local populations. This idea gains plausibility from the discovery of amber, found within the same burial, which originated not from Wales, but from the Baltic region, indicating long-distance trade networks or ritual connections that extended far beyond local boundaries. Equally mysterious is the fact that the cape was found shattered into hundreds of fragments. Some believe natural pressure over more than 3,000 years caused the damage, yet many scholars argue that the cape was intentionally broken before burial, a ritual act meant to release the power of a sacred object. This greatly enhances the symbolic meaning of the cape and suggests that it was not merely an ornamental item, but a component of a belief system, a symbol of authority, or a sacred object connected to solar rituals, as hinted at by its carved motifs. When the cape was reconstructed and displayed in a museum, it served as a quiet reminder that many technologies once mastered by ancient civilizations have disappeared over time. The uniform gold hammering technique of the mold gold cape, even today, cannot be perfectly replicated by modern manual craftsmanship, and no archaeological workshop has ever been found that could explain its existence. It stands both as evidence and as an open question. Do we truly understand ancient civilizations? Or are there still missing chapters and forgotten technologies buried by time?